All right, folks, we had the pleasure of interviewing Whitey McConnaughy this week. And let me tell you something, it was an honor. I grew up on Whitey's films. If you're not familiar, he's responsible for Kingpin Productions. They made so many great videos. We're talking The Revival, Destroyer, Brainstorm, the list goes on and on. So many careers were made from these videos. Mikey LeBlanc, Gigi Ruff, Scotty Wittlake. All my favorite snowboarders filmed for Kingpin, and they were just incredible. So he tells some great stories about that era. And then he went on to do some commercial work. He got into music videos. He actually shot the only sequence of Tony Hawk's 900, which he tells a great story about. It's a really good show. I think you guys are going to love it. He's well-spoken. And before we get into it, I want to say thanks for everybody that comes on board to support this thing. Huge thanks to our Patreon members. Huge thanks to Woodward, Bubs, Autumn, Herschel, Pub Beer, Mammoth, Oakley, Yeti, Hippies, Turtlebox, Nitro, Arc'teryx, and Onyx. So thank you guys for supporting the show. With that being said, let's get into it. The Whitey episode. Here we go.
You are listening to the
Hey, MFM. See you on the lift. Back attack, dude.
Bon voyage!
Hey, yo, homies, good.
Slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
All right, welcome to The Bomb Hole, which is presented by Run Through a Wall. Now today co-hosting, we got Shane Charlebois in studio. What's happening, Shane?
I'm doing good. How's it going with you, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. Not a lot of sleep with the new baby, but full of life because we got Whitey in studio. Whitey, what's happening?
Not much, man. Didn't get much sleep last night either on Shane's fold-out couch.
Perfect.
The cat was checking on him every few minutes.
Yep. Hot cat breath in your mouth. Yeah, that's always good. Let's just jump right into it, Whitey. We got a ton of stuff to cover here. So I think it would be great to just hit the ground running with how'd you get into filmmaking?
As far as filmmaking, I mean, it was kind of a I don't know how it happened really in a way. I am big snowboarder, skater, growing up from Washington, D.C., far from the hills of Utah and snowboard in Colorado and so forth. And but I got into snowboarding like at 15, riding the back hill at the local golf course, wearing high top Vans and so forth. And then as soon as they started allowing snowboarding at the ski resort, I bought a regular Sims, I think might have been a Switchblade, and started snowboarding. And then I went to college and I would take all my finals early and move to Colorado for a month. I'd drive there and live in some shitty place in Breck. And I did it for 3 years. And then my whole plan was to graduate college and then and become a pro snowboarder and move to Colorado. That was literally the
And what
plan.
year is this?
This is 91 or something. I graduated college and I drove to California because that's what all skateboarders do. From the East Coast, you want to go to Cali. Drove there, lived with a friend in San Diego and started skating. Met this guy, Keith Lenhard. He was tracker team manager. I knew him from the East Coast a little bit, and he was friends with this guy, Rhino, Chris Rooney. Became friends with him and started skating a lot of pools. And this is summer. My plan is still to go to Colorado in December. And then somewhere around September, I break my ankle super bad, skating this pool, and got to get 15 screws and plates and whatever. I still healed, and I decided to go to Colorado, and I don't know anybody really there. And I somehow ran into somebody who's my friend needs a roommate. And it was Stevie Alters. And so, that's right. I was with two friends I met from the East Coast with meeting me, but we needed a roommate, and it was Stevie Alters, who we didn't know.
Legendary.
And he lived with this funny hippie roommate who was also a pretty good snowboarder, but he was this total crusty hippie that we used to always tease. And I started snowboarding, but I soon realized I couldn't really snowboard that well because the plate pressed on my binding and all the screws, and it was super painful. And I was just fuck. But at the same time, I'm riding with Alters and meeting these other kids, and they're shredding, way above what anybody was doing back east. The wide stance, drilling their own boards and shit. And it was what the fuck is that? this wide ass stance, and we didn't even get it yet. But Stevie was already doing like weird switch to switch ollies over fences and stuff. And this is like, once again, 92 maybe even 91. And I saw some trailer for some snowboard movie that somebody else had done, and it looked like shit. And it was very like ski related, kind of like Warren Miller style. And we all were, big skaters. And I was just like, well, fuck, I could probably make a better movie than that. Like I had graduated in film, and I took photography in college, and I took extra photography. So I was already in film major. And so I just was like, fuck it. And just picked up a camera. I got one from my uncle who owned a video supply store and sold me one for like wholesale, like a shitty high 8 camera, I think it might have been. I don't even know if it was high 8 yet. But just started filming with like Stevie and J2 and all these people, which I can get into how I know them. But that's pretty much how that happened. So it was complete happenstance how I got into filming. Like as far as, I probably would have gone into filmmaking at some level, but that would have been after I tried to be a pro snowboarder, and I would have failed clearly after seeing the other competition. But it was because I was so hurt. I had no other choice.
So what was the first video that footage went to?
That first movie was CNC. CNC Underground, because at that time I was still like big into pool skating and stuff. So it was like, and I only lived in Colorado. We had no money. I mean, we're not talking any budget, zero money. And so I just had this snowboarding footage. Like I met J2 that same year, Girardi, Cody Dresser. Cody was a neighbor, met him right away, started playing music with him. And so it was just all these kids, but no one was sponsored really. It was just like...
and how affordable was Colorado then?
It was so cheap. I mean, we lived on the floor. I think it was 3 people to our bedroom, just sleeping on like the egg crate kind of like foam, not even a mattress, like the thing you'd put on top of a mattress. Maybe if you got money, you'd double that up. You got 2 of them on top of one another. And so, you're paying like $100 each to live in Silverthorne, right by Summit Snowboards. Our roommate, Ben, worked at Summit Snowboards. But anyway, yeah, it was just like everybody was just scraping by. But snowboarding was so new then, it just felt fun. Like it was almost like the very, very early years of skateboarding, it felt like at that point. No one thought it was going to become anything, and were even trying to become anything. It was just like you just wanted to snowboard and do stuff.
So when you made that movie, was there anybody helping out or supporting it?
No, I mean, we made, like I say, I mean, I didn't even know what we were doing. I was just like, I'm going to try and make this thing. And it was all Colorado snowboarding. And then in the summer, I just shot a lot of skating with like Rhino, who was still skating a lot then, and this guy Tycho, and Dave Rule, and all these like just ripping pool skaters. Shot with Grosso, like Belmars and so forth. And then me and Stevie Alters edited the entire video because, this is all pre-digital. We had no money. I think I scraped like $300 together and had this super shitty editing studio in LA or San Diego, and we edited the entire video in one sitting, I think in like 14 hours.
Wow.
And worked all night.
And what'd you edit it with?
It was like I don't know, maybe high 8 to high 8 deck, multiple decks.
Yeah.
And obviously it's shitty. And but whatever, we did something.
Yeah.
And then we went to the trade show, and there's all these like big movies coming out, like I think Fall Line and Mac Dog and so forth. And it was the first time I've ever been to a trade show. And me and Stevie are there, and J2, and we're just somehow we snuck in. We didn't even have ways to get in. We had no sponsors. But some movie, it was like some movie premiere was going, and somehow I snuck the movie in. It was like, hey, can I just play this before it? Like while people were just mingling around. And some Japanese distributor was there and saw it and was like, oh, it's pretty good. We'll take 500. And 500 was like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like $2,500, which today would be like giving me $150,000 cash right now. Yeah. I mean, it was insane, maybe even more.
That's amazing.
And that was really the only kind of money we got. But it, gave me, like I should do more of these. All of a sudden, like, shit. Yeah. Like we just sold 500 videos. And I think I only ended up selling probably another 500 at best in the US. But whatever, man, it was like off to the races. But and the whole thing, still didn't think you were going to make money. It was just like, this is just so fun to do. And that was that whole thing back then, because there was no bar. Where now it's like, you know, when we started doing laters on, you're like, oh, we want to be as big as Mac Dog or be a standard because they're making all this money. But I didn't know anybody was making any money. And, you know, some people were, but not much.
How long was it until you were shooting film?
Oh, I mean, that was a pretty while away. I mean, a lot of things happened in between. I mean, the very first movie or the second movie, I shot a bunch of Super 8 film and stuff. We used to, we had no money. I would literally steal the super rolls of Super 8 from King Supers in Boulder, because in Boulder they sold film there for the film students, and we would shoplift the film because I had no money.
Yeah.
And it was like that kind of thing, like doing whatever you can to get this movie made. But we'd shoot Super 8, but I mean, at that point, at that time, I had no intention of shooting film, and it just seemed so out of the realm. Like when we started the first one was CNC Underground, and then I wanted to make movies quick. So the first movie we did after that was Wrecked, which was like a mid-season movie. And it was an idea just to do this because then I can get one out sooner to maybe get money for the next one. I didn't want to wait a whole year. But it was pretty great. Eric Koch, who worked at Burton, he handed me like $2,000, or I think $2,000. It might have even only been $1,000 in cash out of nowhere one day. And he's like, "We like what you're doing." Just gave me, and I was just like,
Yes.
holy shit. Like, once again, $1,000 was like handing me $100,000. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that was like going to pay rent for 4 months. You know, it was that cheap. But it was that kind of thing, just another incentive to keep filming, you know? And it was, at the same time, you know, it's like the guys, the snowboarders, because just like myself was coming up, all my friends were coming up. You know, like J2 and Alters and Cody Dresser, and just there's so many people, Dave Newski, like Joe Curtis, like all these people that were like nothing. And so while I was growing, they were growing, and then I was building my posse with them, you know, because we weren't like Mac Dog or Standard where we got the pick of the litter.
And where would you guys film most of the time?
Well, at that time, it was all over. It was like mainly Colorado at first because we didn't have money to go anywhere. So Summit County was the shit back then, you know. I mean, Summit County was hands down the hotbed for snowboarding in the early 90s, I think. I mean, Tahoe, there was definitely stuff going on, but a lot of the progression was going down in Colorado, you know, with like Rowan and Nate and Dale and, you know, that whole movement. But that's like where the big progression with cutting down boards, you know, trying to cut down bindings, trying things. You know, that was the thing. Like, we don't know what's right yet. We don't know really what works. Like, you know, just like style we were talking about, like what trick to do. I don't know. Let's try this. Let's try this handrail. Let's try this thing. You know, like somebody had to come up with the word jib. Like there was things like that. Like people were coming up with shit, you know.
Yeah,
like,
who came up with jib?
I don't know. The first one was the jib line, you know, the big copper jib line, you know, which was like in 7th year and stuff. And Blakely, you know, we started meeting all those guys, and they were in some of my early movies. But it was like such a fun time because everybody was just trying stuff, and no one knew what was right. It wasn't like you have to do this. It was just like, that guy did this. Oh shit, maybe we should try that.
Just building the plane as you're flying it. I'm
exactly.
curious with, you know, J2 being such a staple in all of the Kingpin productions all through the years and from the beginning. I want to hear about J2 in the early days and how you guys met.
As far as how I met J2, I think it was, you know, he got the name J2 from Jason Girardi, who is his good friend from New York. He lived in this apartment right above the Gold Pan, which was like this bar in Breck. And J2 was Girardi's friend, and he moved out like later on. And everybody was like, they'd call the house and they'd ask it like, is Jason there? And it was like J1 or J2, like which Jason are you looking for? And that's how J2 came about, that name. And so I met him from just Girardi. But he, you know, J2's thing that was so fun, and I think it was just because I just right away, like our humor, I just really liked it. You know, we both were so unserious. Like I wasn't like, I'm going to make it as a snowboard filmer. It was just like, this is fun. And I wasn't that, you know, I realized I wasn't as good snowboarding as the other people, but I wanted to keep snowboarding and hang out with everybody. And so filming was my ticket in. You know, so it was like, I'm going to film you guys, and we're going to hang out. You know, that was like, that's my part of the team, you know? And so it was just so fun. And Twos was so goofy because he couldn't snowboard very well at all. You know, he could skateboard, and Girardi's like, just come on out. And like JT used to always joke, he's like, as long as I can slip to the next jib, I'll be fine. You know, if I could just make it there. You know, at that time, we'd go and do this like A base and jib line, and J2 had this giant boom box with a strap on, and he'd ride to the next jib and just play hip hop beats and bounce around while everybody 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, hit some stump or some log slide, and then he would like smile and go down to the next thing and slide down. And, you know, he'd wear like triple extra large flannels back then, like 3 layers.
It's amazing.
And, you know, he got boards from Girardi and stuff. But, you know, but it wasn't like, oh, who's this guy? Like, oh, he's not that great. It's like, oh, dude, he's funny as shit and he'll try anything. But that's kind of like, who was I to say? Like, he was fucking ripping to me. And no one in our crew was that insane. I'd say Alters at that time, who was in our group, was like, clearly like, this guy's got natural talent. Like, he was really so good. Like, everybody was trying, and he was already doing one step ahead of everybody, but not many people really seemed to know that at that time. You know,
what are those big hits like at Vail? Is it like the Whaler?
The Whaler one, yeah.
I remember Stevie hit that really early, didn't he?
Well, I think there's one thing that Stevie really kind of stood out was, I think it was Beaver Creek or Vail, but it was a cat track gap, and Nate Cole had done it in, God darn it, I can't remember which Mac Dog movie it was, maybe Hungry and Homeless. But Nate frontside 180'd it, and it's super sketch because you had to go through the woods, like go between narrow trees, like a foot apart at high speed through ice, and get the most sketchy takeoff next to this like lift little hut.
Yeah.
To go over this gap. Like it was full, just so sketch to do a straight air over it. And Nate did a frontside 180 over it. It was rad. But Alters ended up doing a switch backside 3 over it, which was so sketch to go into these woods back because you're like this close to all these trees at like Mach speed. And so right away it's like, that was when Stevie just wanted to try to one up everybody. Not that he was, but he was willing to try it.
He was really sick going switch back then.
Yeah, as I say, like when I first met him, like when I first moved out there, I didn't see anybody doing that stuff personally. I mean, I know people were, but he was like the first guy doing like rad switch to switch stuff that I had seen, you know, and with good style, you know, like do a Melancholy, something over something, you know, just like small little jibs, but styly switch stuff. Yeah. But he just had, you know, he was always a good skater and stuff. He was always, you know, ripping skateboarder. So it just translated, you know, because I think all that early year, all the best snowboarders, everybody was skateboarders. There was nobody that got into snowboarding and didn't skate in that like early 90s. It was just the natural progression, you know? I think in the 80s, there was definitely some surfers getting into it, but that new wave of the 90s were like the new wave of street skater kids that got into snowboarding. And that's why it went to the way it did. It was like surfers want to cruise. They want to do big mountain stuff. You know, street skaters want to hit tricks. They want to get as many tricks in as possible. And so it just took that level. It's kind of like street skating and the teeny wheels at first, rolling slow, learning technical tricks so they can do what they do today. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what the early 90s were in snowboarding, you know?
Especially impressive on that piece of shit boards with the shitty bindings and, you know, T-bolted so your stance is
You don't realize how shitty they are until they have like the retro events.
Yeah.
And then you try them again, you're like, wait, how? They didn't seem so shitty at the time.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, and the bindings, your feet were just constantly in pain, like all the old bindings and the boots were too big. And
yeah, did the surgery ever somewhat go away with your ankle?
I mean, now it doesn't hurt, but yeah, I mean, if you do something really fast every once in a while and hit some kind of sketchy rut, it'll be like, instant pain. But yeah, those early years were just so fun to see everybody like, you know, there was the cutting down the bindings, you know, there was the first Tarquin no high backs, mini backs, you know, cutting on the sides of your boots. I remember
baseless.
Yeah, exactly. Baseless binding starting. And like Alters once in Vail, he would ride his boots so loose that both feet came out of both boots.
That's amazing.
And the board went down the pipe, and we watched the snowboard take out 3 different skiers on its way. Like just boom.
Did you have to wear leashes after that?
Well, it was so funny because like
that's probably the prime example for the 20 years later.
Well, if the leash was attached to his boot, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that's incredible.
In his socks.
Yeah, so he was literally just in his socks and had to walk down. But he rode his boots so loose. But it was like those years was just so fun because everybody, like one night I remember, this is like in Beaver Creek, Stevie had this new like board with Burton sent him that was like a experimental board. And they didn't have any drill holes yet. And he had been drinking 40s and he stood on the board and we're like watching TV in the living room and he takes a marker and he's like, this feels good, and draws little feet out.
Yeah.
And then he just makes T-bolt holes all at night. And then the next day we went on this road trip and he's like, his stance is so wide. And he's like, it seems a little wide. You know, Stevie's like 5'7" maybe at best, maybe 5'6", and it was like 28-inch stance or something. But he got all these shots and wrecked in that movie, like crushing it. It was like, but he totally just asymmetric, you know, dead centered, wide ass stance. But it was just like no measure and just, this is good. But that's just but it worked. But I don't know, those early years were just so fun that way because, you know, also we shot on the mountains all back then. You know, we shot on the mountains, I think, for all my movies, God, until at least like 97 almost even. You know, we're like, you just do whatever you can to find something on the mountain. You know, we definitely did handrails, but then handrails kind of went away, you know, like handrails were big at first and then they kind of disappeared from like 95 to 98 a little bit, or at least like 95 to 97. But yeah, you just do things out of bounds a little bit. And occasionally you go to like maybe Loveland Pass and some things, but there was no major hiking and definitely no snowmobiling, at least from us. And so it was just felt so much more spontaneous back then because it was just so, it never felt serious. You know, once you're hiking up a super long mountain with a bunch of people foot packing, building a jump all day, you're now filming, you know, like you're not snowboarding as much. I mean, it's fun, but you're there for intention, a certain reason, you know, it's deliberate. It's much less if you go snowmobile for 3 hours, you know. But that's why it was so fun because it was like, this is okay. Oh, I guess it sucks. And then go somewhere else. And we just find like, or those early years, the key to get as much footage as possible is to be as a filmer fast as possible. Because no one wanted to wait to like me to set up. So I would get so good at like ripping the camera out of my bag as fast as possible and setting up. And so a lot of times they weren't the best camera angles, but that's the only way to keep the snowboarders filming with you because they just wanted to ride.
Yeah.
Like in those early years, it's just like, I just want to snowboard, you know? And so it's like, fuck, I need to film this. And so I would speed down as fast as I can and pull it out and then shoot it and then hop in and chase after them as fast as I could. So it's kind of fun that way.
It seemed like you kind of carried that on through with Kingpin through the years because I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like Mac Dog was like everything was like on a tripod and like really, and there seemed like with Kingpin there was a handheld aspect on a lot of the footage that was really nice.
Yeah, or you're saying that it's just really shaky and shitty, which probably is true, sadly. No, trust me. I mean, I look at some of those early films because I'm actually digitizing all of them right now for a release. So I'm like revisiting all this stuff I had done, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of questionable shots. You know, I wished I had thought about a tripod and stuff, but honestly, because our movies were so low budget, we had guys that clearly became some of the top snowboarders. But once again, everybody I filmed with our crew was just friends first, 100%. I never was like, hey, you want to start filming with us? It was only organic. Like you're already in our friend group. And we got all these friends, but these friends are the ones that are good. So those are the ones that can go filming with us. But we never picked people out. Even as we got big, it still was friends group for 85% of it. But I'm just saying, like, since it was so much just that area, and, you know, we didn't think about, like, tripods, even though I should have. But it was just like, how do we make this fun? Like, we just always were just like, this should be fun. We never really thought about it as work. But it's also the reason why I didn't make any money in it until later on. You know, we were keeping going half from my money income from Blunt Magazine I was working for and my movies. Because, dude.
Yeah, maybe let's talk about Blunt. Like, well, how did that come about?
you know, like I say, I started shooting photos in college and so forth. And so when I started filming, I first was just filming because I didn't have money for shooting film really. But then I started shooting film a little bit, photos, and I would try to do back and forth. And I was a big fan of Big Brother, like a lot of my friends at that time. This is like, say, 93 or so. And then I had got wind that there was this new mag coming out called Blunt. And, you know, once again, I was like low on the totem pole. And so I wasn't going to get into Transworld. I wasn't shooting, I don't know who was big back then, Tina Bassett or Sean Palmer or, you know, Brushy or whatever. You know, I just didn't have access to them. And so I wasn't going to get into Transworld. But I also liked Big Brother. And then I heard someone was doing like a Big Brother Snow. And they had done one issue. I remember Delta Funky Homo Sapien was on the cover. And it was at the trade show, and Ken Block was there. He was just doing drawers clothing then. And I just came up, and I'm like, you know, 23 or whatever. And I was like, I love this mag idea. Like, I'd love to do anything, blah, blah, blah. And he had known a little bit of my stuff, but it was so little. But I think he just liked my enthusiasm and like that I was like willing to do it for free. And then I just started hounding him all the time. And this is back in the early 90s when they were doing video grabs for magazines, like Big Brother was doing that, which people, you know, just hated at times. But
Screen Grab magazine.
yeah,
right there.
And but they did some screen grabs of my movie Caffeine. So this is like 94. And then I shot some photos. I got in there too. And it was just like all of a sudden I was hanging out at Circus, which is like in Carlsbad with Ken and Damien Way and stuff, because that means like Blunt was literally just Ken Block doing almost everything. Marcus Paulson was there. Nico was shooting photos too. But that was really it. And then I just would just hang out and do whatever was needed and try to insert my thing myself whenever I could into whatever, you know. And then I just kept doing it. And then sooner or later it was like, Ken started DC at this point, and he was like, didn't know if it was going to work, but he wanted to focus more on DC shoes and Blunt. So that's when he sold Blunt to World Industries. This is like 95, I think, 96 maybe. And the only thing that went sort of with the mag was me. It was kind of like, got to take Whitey, but also because the Big Brother guys didn't know anything about snowboarding. So it was kind of like, he'll show you what's the ropes. And then I kind of became the official photo editor then, and then started working at World and stuff.
And for people that don't know Big Brother or Blunt, like maybe explain that a little, because if you guys were doing stuff nobody was touching.
Well, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know Big Brother, it's a sad day. But yeah, I mean, Big Brother was this magazine started by Rocco, owner of World, and he just wanted something because Transworld wouldn't run some of his ads that he wanted to do, because he wanted to do all these racy, kind of controversial ads and just have more control, and they were kind of being dicks. And so he's like, well, fuck you guys. I'll just do my own magazine. And there he has an output for all of his, you know, his riders and his do whatever ads he wants and so forth. And he got together this incredible group of, you know, artists and illustrators to run Big Brother, like Jeff Tremaine, Sean Cliver, Mark McKee, and Rick Kosick was in there, and there's other people I'm forgetting, you know. But anyway, it was just this legendary magazine that did Spike Jones shot stuff for them. And it was out of World Industries called Dick House Publishing. And so, I mean, anybody that was into the skateboarding world back then, you either loved Big Brother or kind of hated it, you know, because some people didn't like it. They thought it was making fun of skateboarding at some level, but they never made fun of skateboarding. I think they just made fun of how serious certain people were making.
And it was very raw about it.
Yeah, they were just having skateboarding. Yeah. Skateboarding's awesome, but it's not, you know, curing world hunger, you know?
It's pretty crude and raw itself.
Yeah, and just like our group with Kingpin, it was like we were all just, it was fun. It was a fun thing. Skateboarding is incredibly fun. It's an expressive thing, you know, and that's how snowboarding earlier was. And I think that's how the Big Brother guys, this is a great outlet for just, we like to have fun as much as we like to skateboard. And let's talk about that as much. And, you know, and they also started the gonzo journalism kind of style more in skateboarding, taking from Hunter S. Thompson and so forth, where let's insert ourselves into the article, not the people we're observing, you know?
Yeah, very pure.
And so anyway, they took over Blunt, and we pretty much just kept, and Ken started that. Ken wanted that same attitude. And then, of course, they just took it. I mean, Ken's intention was like, let's do a Big Brother for snow, and perfect for Big Brother to buy it. So, but yeah, so they were supporting me enough, giving me some money, but because my snowboard movies at that time, I mean, we're still talking budgets of like under $15,000 for the whole movie. And I'm shooting film at that point. So it's like, there's not much money going around. So I had to use my Blunt money. But it was great because Blunt would run ads and we'd get our photos in there. And so we kind of became the, Kingpin.
And speaking of film, I mean, how much did it cost at that time? Like per minute, or how does it break down? Like,
well, we'd shoot 100-foot rolls of film, and that's about 3.5 minutes of film shooting time. So you can imagine there's not much.
yeah.
I mean, we would go up on the hill, or at least I would. I'd have a backpack, would probably bring like 20 rolls with me if I could fit them in my bag, because I'd also bring still equipment along with my 16. So my backpack weighed like 50, 60 pounds. And then, you're changing film into freezing temperatures and so forth. Yeah. But the worst was getting all the film together and then having to get it processed. And you'd pack up this box to send to LA, and it would be the most stressful thing in the world because you're shipping off like a month worth of footage.
No backup.
Yeah. And I remember just like taping it up and going to the FedEx place and just being like, please, like, get this there. Like, so fucking nervous because, also no money. Like, this is everything to me. And then, you'd get a call from the lab that it got it, But that was every single time because we live in, this isn't back in the day. Like, I didn't live in LA, so the only place was Hollywood to get it processed, or New York City. So
what about when you get the rolls back?
That usually really wasn't much of an issue, Like, I don't know. Shooting film, there's especially snowboarding, because it becomes just like shooting snowboarding photo-wise, your exposure is pretty quick. You're almost, at that point, you don't even need to take a light meter reading for the most part. It's like, oh, it's sunny, it's this. 100 feet of film, it's this f-stop, this whatever. So there wasn't too much of that. I mean, of course, every once in a while, but it's more about like, shit, I wish that was a little, shot that better, or it was a little out of focus. But exposure's usually fine. But we were just talking about that back in the day of like, you think, Shane, between digital photos and whatever, back in the day, you'd be like, all hype when someone lands it, and as a photographer or a filmer, you just got to be confident, be like, oh yeah, I got that, and tell the rider like, no, we're good. And they'd have to be confident in you, and then you just move on. That's all your choice. Where nowadays it's like double, triple check it, and you're like, let me do that again. I was kind of a little weird.
Totally.
Which is good, but it's also kind of sucks. Sometimes you're just like,
Well, also, I mean, you weren't spending time shooting someone try 60 tries to do something. It was like you were there to make it count. I remember you told me once, it's better to shoot 6 rolls and get the shot instead of 4 rolls and leave without getting the shot.
For sure. Because it's like, get something out of it. But we'd also, especially with stills, if you shoot sequences, we'd just throw the film in the trash. You're not going to even get it processed because it costs so much money.
Somebody didn't land it, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just chuck it.
You just be like, I'd put like rolls of film that people didn't land in one section, and people that landed, or or if it's a still, obviously it's different. But yeah, you'd just be tossing. Your skateboarding even worse. You're just blowing sequences. Yeah.
I have a note. This is a little bit further along, but it's kind of on topic here. Mikey told me to bring up shooting 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter at the same time and building some type of rig.
Yeah, like, as I say, I used to go up and shoot stills and film, and I was kind of one of the rare that did both, but it was more than anything, it was just out of like money and just wanting to get as much stuff as possible. And especially since I was, shooting with Blunt, and Blunt ended up going out of business and working for Transworld. But, and then the other thing was like shooting with people and being like, fuck, do I film this or should I get a sequence of it or a still? Because, I know people wanted both, but which is better? And so I designed this bracket where I could stick my still camera on vertically up against my Bolex, which was a square camera. And so I could shoot follow cam like shooting, I turned the movie camera on, and then as I got to the hit, I'd go pop, 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 and shoot a sequence. And those things almost always worked. And it was so rad. I mean, I would really only do it for follow cam stuff, but it worked great. I mean, I had a bunch of photos published, and it was like double duty. And the riders were pumped because they're like, sweet, I got both. One try, you know?
It's awesome.
Now, do you find yourself slowing down a little bit in your older age, maybe getting off hill a little earlier? Well, you could be dehydrated. 75% of Americans are dehydrated. And that goes up when you're at elevation, when you're in the mountains. So I drink Bubs Hydrate or Die hydration packets. There's 2,000 milligrams of electrolytes. There's no added sugar. There's no artificial flavors. Let me tell you, when I'm hydrated, I ride better. I can ride longer. I have more energy. All in all, my vitality is just better. So if you're interested in picking up some Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die, head on over to bubsnaturals.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And stay hydrated, people, with Bubs Naturals Hydrate or Die. All right, folks, we have a special announcement. We will be announcing the LAAX Open on Red Bull TV here in our studio January 18th with Danny Davis and Craig McMorris. We're going to have a blast in studio, calling the pipe final, calling the slope style final. It's going to be a monumental event. So be sure to check out Red Bull TV January 18th. It's going to be a good time, so don't miss it.
Boom! Nitro Snowboards is back at your favorite snowboard shop. Nitro was founded over 34 years ago by a couple of snowboarders and is owned and operated and run by snowboarders today. Supporting the snowboard culture through responsible business practice by supporting the shops first and developing some of the best boards, boots, and bindings over the last 34 seasons is why Nitro is still around and why we want to keep being here. Nitro co-founder Tommy DeLago said it best: anyone who takes the time to learn how to snowboard is a snowboarder and part of the Nitro family. Nitro has been supporting team riders since day one, and the team is stacked with a global presence of over 40 riders, from Sam Taxwood, Aero Etala, Brian Fox, Marcus Cleveland, Haley Langwin, Elias Elhart, Griffin Siebert, Christy Price, Sean Miskimen, Torgeir Bergen, Brantley Mullins, Benny Urban, Chuan Lee, Dominic Wagner, and a new member to the Nitro family, Iris Pham, people. Let's go. So what are you waiting for? Vote with your dollars this season and support a company whose mission is to support the snowboard community, the people, and the culture. Pick up your new Nitro snowboard gear from your favorite local snowboard shop this season.
Yeah, so as you were talking about Blunt, what was the story there with Penthouse and that whole scenario?
It wasn't Penthouse. It was a competitor of Penthouse. Well, we were at, working at a World. Big Brother and Blunt were out of the same offices, which was, I loved it. But Rocco kind of wanted to get a cash grab. And supposedly LFP, Larry Flint Publications, of old Hustler fame, wanted Blunt. And Rocco wanted to sell Big Brother, and they didn't care about Big Brother yet. This is like 97. And skateboarding at that time was kind of in a lull, and snowboarding was at its peak at that point, really popularity-wise. It was like all over MTV Cribs, or just all over the celebrities doing it and shit. And so Rocco's like, well, I'll sell you Blunt, but you got to buy Big Brother. And so at first we were all like, dude, this is rad. We can do all this crazy shit. Like Larry Flint, like there's going to be no censorship whatsoever. And so we all packed up and went over there. Some people changed. Nadas Kappas went back with us. He was our art director. And we hired Dave England as the main editor. Andy Blumberg got hired as managing editor. And we all set up offices there, and Big Brother had offices. Dave Carney took over. A lot of the World guys, some guys went from World and some didn't. But anyway, it was just kind of ironic that right away we started getting, us and Big Brother started getting notes from the people at Larry Flint. Like we'd come in the offices, this is in Beverly Hills, and they'd like have a note under our door. Yes, you cannot say shit or something like this in some article, because we had all of a sudden people proofing things and approving, and we're like, what? You show full penetration. Like, how are you?
Don't say shit.
Why is the word shit here, or fuck, offensive? But it was just kind of, it was, I don't know, it was just quite eye-opening. You know, we'd also be walking down these hallways of this ornate, gaudish kind of like Larry Flint's LFP building, exactly how you imagine it. A lot of gold everywhere. It's kind of like Trump, you can imagine, style. And it was just very surreal for us being in there. It's Beverly Hills, like in Wilshire and South Cienega. But they were paying us. We had like a 401k. We had health insurance and everything. So it was amazing. But that lasted for a while, and it was pretty good. But the irony is, well, we went for a while, and then finally it was like I had visited Portland with Big Brother. I was shooting some video for Big Brother. I also shot some stuff for Big Brother skate videos. And we went up there with Tobin Yellen and Dave Carney, and I hadn't really hung out in Portland too much. And we hung out with like Ethan Fowler and this guy Chris Reed and stuff. But all of a sudden, it was like, man, Portland's awesome. Like, you know, when you have never been to a city and you go there with the right people, you can have a completely different vibe, you know? And I talked to Dave England, who was the, like I say, editor of Blunt, and I was like, man, I kind of want to move to Portland. He's like, I do too. And I was like, shit, maybe we could get Flint, let us move the magazine up there. And at the time, it seemed like a long shot. You know, we asked like Tremaine or something, and he's like, you're going to ask. And they were like, why would we let you do that? But then we found these offices that were huge for nothing, because Portland was incredibly cheap then. And after they heard how much rent was, they're like, yeah, you guys can move up there, which was amazing. And that's when I moved to Portland, and Dave England moved there. We moved all these offices. We had these great place. And, you know, this is back in the day, pre-internet. We had to set up big server systems for the computers. It was like a big expense. And then 4 months later, they dropped the whole magazine. Like, we never even put a magazine out after that. But I had been shooting photos all that winter. And, you know, back then we would shoot all winter, St. Trandville the same way for the most part. And then you'd come out for the whole following years and then catch back up. So I had this treasure trove of photos. So that summer I just sold photos here and there. And
So when Blunt shut down, where'd you go from there?
well, yeah. So Flint ended up dropping Blunt. And it was kind of ironic that that's the one year I took every year I was making snowboard movies. And a lot of these years I was doing two a year. But Blunt was, when Flint bought us, I got a good raise. And I'm like, maybe I'll just take a year off making snowboard movies. I think I'd made like 9 at that point. And I didn't know if I was even going to make another one. And then just completely ironic, they dropped the magazine later that year. It was like April or something. Because I remember I had to summer off, and I actually filed for unemployment for the first time. But it was sweet. So I had all these photos. I was selling them sporadically and just had a great summer. And then somewhere around like August or something, I got a call from Sessions. A friend was working there, I think Keith Wilson. And he's like, hey, we're thinking about doing a session movie. Do you want to maybe, you know, put it together? And I at that time didn't even know if I was going to make another snowboard movie. And I was like, oh, shit. You know, I hadn't even thought about it. You know, I was actually dating a girl in Sweden. I remember I was in Sweden at the time. And then I was like, And then I I called a few other companies up that I knew and was like, hey, if I made another snowboard movie, you think you'd sponsor it? And all of a sudden I got like 6 companies. You know, it's still a little amount of money. And that's when I ended up making The Revival, hence making the name The Revival.
Legendary.
And so it was like, all of a sudden, I mean, I think my budget for that movie was like $27,000. And we shot all film, but I was like reinvigorated and stuff. Transworld, I don't think they had hired me yet, but they were taking some of my photos and stuff, and they seemed to be a pretty good supporter. But we had a really good crew that year. And same thing, because we've done some pretty fun sketches in my other previous movies, but it was like, let's do just more of that stuff too, you know, just kind of have fun. We had a really great amount of people. I think everybody was just so psyched because I didn't even know it, man. I didn't really think people cared about my movies that much, but it was really great when we came back, like how many writers and stuff were like, dude, I'm so psyched you guys are making another movie. Like to me, and I was like, really? I didn't think anyone cared. And I honestly felt it in the writers. Like everybody was just stoked. And I don't know if it was just our attitude or whatever, and just it was fresh. But that was a really, you know, and we just had a great time putting that out. And then I remember at the trade show or whatever, we didn't even have a big premiere. We just had this little thing at this bar, like literally. And everybody was like, holy shit. Like everyone loved it. Like we did some pretty rad opening and stuff. And I did like a homage to like the movie Pi, which I loved, like Darren Aronofsky. We shot this whole movie. We had a great crew. A lot of the people I had shot earlier in the earlier movies, but then a few new riders, you know, Wittlake being one of them, which we should get into.
Otterstrom.
And I think Otterstrom might have been his first movie too. But we knew him from Colorado because we were, you know, still had big Colorado roots. But it was that movie ended up being so magical to me because, like I say, I took a year off, didn't think anyone cared. All of a sudden, I'm making another movie and having fun and I have a little bit of money, or relative. And we did this, we had a super little premiere at the ASR and everybody fucking loved it. Like way even more than I thought. Like I remember somebody coming up to me, like Raul from like Special Blend, who was on MacDog thing. And he's like, dude, I heard your movie's the best movie this year. Like he had seen the other things or whatever. And I was like, well, there's no way, you know, kind of thing. He's like, no, dude, I swear. And I was like, huh. You know, it seemed really hard to believe. I'm not saying it was, but all these people seemed super jazzed. And that kind of was what really was, everybody felt that way after the fact, you know, and I just couldn't believe it. Everybody, and then at that point, you know, all of a sudden it's September and people are talking about the following year and that movie sales are doing pretty well. But then all of a sudden these companies are like, we want to sponsor this and that. And that's Ken at that time, who I'd known forever. Ken Block. He's like been doing DC shoes because DC didn't even sponsor the revival. He's like, we want to be the sponsor, and like gave the most of any other sponsor. And then all of a sudden everybody's in, and I think my budget went from like $25,000 in revival to $200,000. So quite a difference. But it was just that's why revival to me is so special, because I almost just gave up, and it was such like a sleeper. Mm-hmm. You know, the Destroyer did great, but people were expecting it to do pretty good because we had all these great riders, we had all these prestigious companies backing us, you know, the cool companies, and at that point our riders became popular. But it was just such a cool surprise because it never was intended or like we did it. It was just like, what? We did it.
All right, we're going to get into our first guest question. This guest question is presented by Hippies. They're made sustainably with chickpeas. They got new flavor blasts. They come in blazing hot and white cheddar explosion. They're available at hippies.com and Amazon. You can use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And we love Hippies. We freaking smash these all day at work here when we're doing spreadsheets, TPS reports, water cooler talk, all the corporate things. They're great for any setting. So let's get into this first question. This one is from Timmy Osler. All right, here we go.
Whitey, what's up, dude? It's Tim Osler calling. Hey, man, I'm so stoked to hear that you're finally in the booth with Chris. I was thinking back through the memories. We had a lot of great trips up to Jackson Hole, ripping in your Astro van. Got to go to New Zealand with you in the 90s, and some really great core memories for me personally. Hey, I was hoping that you'd share with the listeners what went into the making of the Revelation Snowboards commercial for the Warriors, what safety precautions were taken for the drivers, and what ended up happening to the props at the end of that filming session. Man, your contribution to snowboarding is legendary. Your unfiltered approach is epic, and you, sir, are a legend. I can't wait to hear this episode, man. I hope you're great. Take care.
Wow. Timmy's the man.
Timmy's awesome.
As far as that goes, you know how we got into it. Like I've done a few sketches before, and one of the early ones was for Substance with Tech 9. We did I made this commercial with them. It was like a Starsky and Hutch kind of thing. That was really fun. I mean, that's like 95, 94. And then when for the Warriors, you know, that was the first movie really the world got to know JP and Mitch and Timmy and all those guys. Like Rev was like a big thing. And I just thought that was also the first year I moved to Utah. And I just got such a kick out of the Mormons in general. Because for the most part, they're always the nicest, but they're also just sometimes very naive or overly innocent, and it's amazing. And because how they want to cuss, but they say words like heck and stuff, and it's just so funny. But anyway, Mitch and JP for some reason were super into the Dukes of Hazzard. Like they would watch it all the time and talk about it and stuff. And then I was like, man, we should try to do a Dukes of Hazzard like commercial. And they were like, what? I was like, yeah, we should try and do something. And because Rev was sponsoring my movie. I mean, I think they sponsored my movie for like $5,000. You know, we're not talking much money. I think we might have been able to weasel like another like $800 out of them, like literally that. But we bought 2 cars, both of them for under $500, maybe like $300. I mean, this is when you could get shitty old cars, and we spray painted them, like, or even maybe roller paint. And, you know, it was like Timmy and Jeremy Jones and, you know, obviously JP and Mitch. And just did everything, you know, got clothes at the Goodwill and stuff, and went to some field, which is probably some strip mall now here. And just did this little sketch and stuff. With some of them we did like shot for shot from Dukes of Hazzard and shot it all on the 16. And as far as safety goes, I think our safety for the car jump was Mitch and JP had a mattress that they had rolled up like a burrito, and we stuck it on their lap. Like, so it was like going across them. And so hopefully the mattress would hit the steering wheel, but it wasn't so high that you would see it necessarily in most of the shots. And I kept the camera low, but that was the extent. I mean, there was.
So they really launched it.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I was wondering about that.
I
That
always
was some
thought no one
airtime.
was in there.
Oh no. They totally launched it, and it was everybody driving, and we did banging cars and smashing it. Timmy was driving, Jeremy, and so forth. As far as what happened to the cars, I have no idea, and I don't know if Timmy knows, but for all I know, we just left them in that lot or on the side of the road or something.
Were they destroyed?
I mean, they kept driving. I think at one point it finally stopped driving. You know, I mean, cars aren't meant to be jumped like that. You know, they didn't have the suspension.
They sure look good when they jump.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to jump it farther, but there was no landing ramp or anything. But yeah, I mean, that thing was just such a blast, and you know, that kind of stuff, because everyone always liked when we ever did little sketches. Like my very first movie, which is horrible, I did some sketches in it, and it was just terrible. I just, you know, I was 21 and didn't know shit, but it's like I always wanted to do it, you know. And then other movies, it was like I think I got a little like gun shy because some of my earlier ones were bad, but then it was like. In the Warriors, well, I actually did it in, like I say, Substance, but I soon found out, like, dude, that was so rad, that little thing. Because everyone's going to have great snowboarding. We know that. Like, you know, I can't compete with MacDog at that time with his level of money and riders and just distribution and stuff. So it was like, well, we're just doing our own thing. You know, that was kind of the deal. Like, our riders are not the normal riders. And so let's also just, you know, I also used different music. I never used snowboard rock.
Well, that's one thing I remember from meeting you. You always had a really next level library of music before the time of easily finding music. Where'd that come from?
I mean, I've always been a huge, I mean, people are always, I'm into music. But, you know, just as a kid, I just was in playing a band since I was really young, and just always like kind of weird avant-garde stuff. And just not just avant-garde, but everything, you know.
But before the time of, you know, now you can easily getting into genres and stuff. I mean, I remember coming to see you in Portland, and you would have a list of music that I was like, how do you find this?
I listened to all that stuff. I mean, I had thousands and thousands of CDs, and like, you know, and like just so many, and always have. And so plus, like, you know, the skateboard movies, like growing up in the 90s, like all the real videos had everything from like Redbone, Stevie Wonder, Jackson 5 to like, you know, a Slayer song. And so I was like, well, I want to use that. And so, you know, MacDog, and it was the current flavor, you know, songs like No Effects and Pennywise and Bad Religion and stuff like that. Like, I was like, I don't want to use that kind of stuff. And I didn't listen to that stuff anyway. So I was like, I also wanted music that's felt like variety. I don't want every song to be like dun, 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 like certain rhythm. It's like you have like a funk, you know, like I'll use a Sammy Davis Jr. for J2, and then I'll use some DC hardcore band, and then I'll use like a Led Zeppelin song. And it's just like, to me, that's fun. And, you know, I don't know. I was never really worried about getting, you know, in trouble with it so much because we were selling so little at that time.
We have a question about that. Sorry to interrupt you, but Jordan Mead, Patreon member, wants to know. Kingpin had undoubtedly the best soundtracks in snowboard movie history. Did you guys run with it? No one cares about licensing? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I think statute of limitations would be up by now, so I should be okay. But my reasoning, and we actually did pay for music, but the only time I paid for music was when it was smaller bands.
Yep.
Because it was like Metallica or the Beatles don't need $2,500, which is the most I'm going to pay, like which is what you pay for, say, you know, like a NoFX or whatever. And I'm like, $2,500 to them is like, you know, it's nothing. It's like giving me a penny. So I'm like, if I'm going to steal anything, it's going to be from a Led Zeppelin or something of that quilt, or Jackson 5. Yeah. So we just went with it. And once I was also taking from the skateboarding model, you know, Zero, you know, Toy Machine wasn't paying David Bowie either, and so forth, you know. Every once in a while somebody did, but for the most part, that stuff was all ripped because they weren't making that much money. I just know how much it costs to license a Stevie Wonder or Michael Jackson song. It's more than the budget of an entire movie, you know? So that's the way I went with it. It was like, you know, it's kind of like the same way with old snowboard skate graphics.
So support the small guys made sense.
Yeah, and it's also like that cease and desist mentality. It's like Rocco, like, we'll do this until someone shuts us down, and if it shuts us down, then we'll just move on. And it's like perfect limited release, and then you're the guy who has that one board, and you're even more excited, you know, because now no one else can get that because it's done. Yeah. So that's our reasoning, you know.
Well, with all this talk about music and snowboard videos, we're going to get into a staple of the show that we do every episode. Shane, you know what that might be?
I have a feeling it's where we guess the song to a video part.
It's called Name That Video Part.
Yeah.
Name That Video Part is presented by Turtlebox. They make some incredible speakers. I got them at my house. They deliver the best sounding, most durable portable speakers available. The Gen 2 portable speaker is 100% waterproof. You can bring it up on hill with you. It also has 20 plus hours of playtime, so you can blast music for a long time. It's loud. That's what I like about it. And then it has AB surround sound experience, so you can connect two turtle boxes together. You're having a party at the house. You want to entertain. You want to have the same music in a couple different rooms. Get yourself some turtle boxes. So the Turtlebox Gen 2 portable speaker is available now, and you know, check it out if you're interested. And they're supporter of the show, so support them. And let's get into Name That Video Part here. Whitey, confidence level 0 through 10.
It really depends when the video came out.
It's pre 2000.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, so. Since you've edited so many videos, we're doing a few here. Normally we do one song. We got a few. Okay, first one. Let's see how you do.
That's Giggy. I mean, if it's in my movies, I'll know it. I thought you were talking other companies.
Well, I just wanted to see. Well, we got 4, so we're going easiest to hardest.
1 out of 4.
So you're 1 for 4. Okay, next one.
That's Porcheron.
It's DCP. God damn, this is too easy. I thought he would struggle a little bit.
Well, if it wasn't mine, I'll know it.
I guess you did spend hours staring at footage editing this. Exactly. Okay, next one. Here we go.
That's J2.
God damn, these are too easy. I'm sorry, Whitey. Okay, last one. This one's a little bit trickier.
Oh, that's from the Warriors. But
Correct.
I'm trying to think what
Oh, we might have
that
got
also
him.
J2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Damn it. All right. Well, congratulations, Shane. He's got a prize pack over there from Herschel Bags. Silk's not in studio, unfortunately, today to deliver this, but you got a bomb hole. You You got a nice Herschel tote here, quality bag for your items, and it's filled with some bomb hole merch and whatnot. Congratulations,
Well, thank
Whitey. I feel stupid.
I'm sorry. I really thought you were picking other filmmakers, and then I was going to be struggling.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking it was a long time ago. You know, maybe it's.
Like I say, I'm also redoing all my old movies,
Good
so
point.
I've had to look at them again. But
Those are great songs.
But yeah, like you spend so much time with those. Those parts are always so important when you're editing them. You know, you spend 9 months with these friends, going all over the place, and so many adventures, and then all accumulates, into like these 3 weeks of editing. So it's like picking those songs and editing, it really burns into your brain forever. And it's like, so I'm just saying there's a reason why I bet I could pick any single song from any of my movies.
Damn.
Because it's just not like a flippant
you said you're redoing
thing.
your movies. What are you doing with that?
We're remastering, or I am, going through all my old movies, cleaning them all up because some of them are 30 years old, and then up-resing them and going to release them all on flash drive with Videograss. So, and I'm going to do some bonuses and stuff. So it's cool.
When's that
So
dropping?
I'm definitely before the holidays, probably early December.
So that'll be out by the time this show comes out.
Yeah,
It'll
Good
be
stuff,
available.
because people that haven't seen The Warriors or Revival, I mean, those
There's so many
movies
old ones that are
amazing.
really cool to watch. We were talking earlier, just like some of the writing on some of the, even like 94, 95, some of the tricks, it's like people almost forgot about. And like, oh man, that guy had really good style. Like you kind of remember like somebody that was just never really quite make it, or maybe they gave up just because they were just over it. Not that they couldn't have, but they just had really good style and stuff. There's a couple things where I'm like, man, that would be dope to see today. Like it's kind of fresh. Obviously you're not going 120 feet because it just wasn't. But if you look at a skate video from 93, people aren't doing that either, But some dope style and some kind of cool tricks. I'd love to see kids like take those things up.
Hey,
to the
let's
next
jump.
level.
Let's jump back into that. We got one more song for Name That Video part. This is for our listeners. So if they know the song, or if you guys know the song, comment on the photo of Whitey on Instagram. That's where we pick our winner. You guys know the drill. Here we go. Okay. Thank you guys for playing Name That Video part. All right, Whitey, I want to pick up where you're just talking to, because off air, before we started recording, I was kind of asking you about the current state of snowboarding, a lot of high rotations, and you were just mentioning, 93, 94, what people are doing. What do you feel about the now versus then? What could people take from the old snowboarding?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm ever like, who am I to say anything? I'm not a pro snowboarder, but I don't know. When I see some of this stuff now, at least more of the contest kind of big airs and stuff, like where it's just three 360s or more. I don't even know what it's up to now. It's like
2160.
Yeah.
I feel like once they have to explain to you what just happened, then it's another level.
Yeah, I mean, just the way I see it is like once you get to a certain amount, it's not progression. It's just another half spin. Progression would be doing something different or that's, I don't know, an improvement on something like creatively or inventive. There's nothing creative about doing another 180. It's just doing another 180. Like, it's not like, oh, I flipped a coin twice. That's more creative than flipping it once. It's just, it's harder, but it's not creative at all. It doesn't take any imagination. And so it'd be like, those early years were great because not that things were better back then. We had the luxury of there wasn't all this stuff established. So you're having to come up with stuff, So it's not like, oh, that we were so much creative then. We had no choice because we hadn't done a lot of tricks yet because they hadn't been made. So it was this really great time of free expression, and no one knew what was cool or what was bad, and it was going to be filtering out down the line. There definitely was a lot of whack tricks. You're not seeing lean Draculas done hopefully too much today and so forth. But it's like, I think there was a little bit more of a focus on style because it's easier to kind of show your style more when you're not doing a lot of spinny kind of stuff. You kind of have to show it off when you're doing more airs. I mean, it's like someone like Chris Miller or something. no one can deny that dude's style, you know, but it's, you notice him doing like, you know, whether it's windshield wiper lean airs and so forth, or crooked cops and so forth. But it's not like you notice him because he just did a 1080. You know, it's not the style in a 1080, it's a 1080. And I don't know, I definitely think it's like be rad to like look at some of the older stuff and pick out certain people's style and go, how can I take that and just elevate it and make it big, you know, into 2025 standards, you know? And that kind of shit I think would be
as far as filming, you know, you filmed a lot of iconic riders. When you think about style, who really jumps out at you?
I mean, in the early days, you know, Tarquin was a huge one. He was like a kind of little sleeping giant. He didn't like to film much. I lucky enough was to get to shoot him 1 year. I lived with him like in '94. But he was doing like, you know, no grabs, but always having like clearly like a forerunner of Mark Frank, you know, and just like pausing and stopping and then like the shifty kind of things, and just made mellow things look good. You know, he had that like just super subtle kind of, you know, style. He was clearly one. You know, Alters occasionally had some really great stuff. Like when he could do like really rad lean airs where he just looked like a Chris Miller kind of style, you know. This is more people I rode with, you know. Rowan, of course. You know, like Rowan was someone that just, I don't know the answer, but, you know, he was clearly, I think, the guy at that time. Like when that movie came out, it was like, everybody's like, who's that guy? Holy shit. But he didn't stop snowboarding because he couldn't make it. He just was like, I don't want to do this, you know, kind of professionally. It's sort of like a Wittlake kind of thing, you know. But you know, those early guys were so, and then, you know, when Jamie Lynn, his first part, you know, I think with like Six Pack and stuff, everybody was like, whew, like that's, but then it got kind of bad because then everybody was trying to do the Jamie Lynn mutes and stuff and started just looking stinky. You know, Jamie could make him look sweet where other people would just look and stink. So yeah. And then I don't know, down the line, you know, style wise, it's like, kind of hard to say, like, as far as what, you know, the style is so subjective, you know, like, and there's nothing wrong or right. You know, certain people are like, they like certain, like, people grabbing near the nose methods where I think it looks like bad Euro old style and stuff, you know? I'm still from the skateboarding standpoint. Like, if to me, you can make it look like a dope old skateboarding style then I'm like, that's my favorite style, you know? Like a Gons or something, you know? Like when Gon skates vert, like, it's sick. You know, like Scotty Wittlake is this guy, he never is somebody that would like overly tweak something, but he just has this calm style while just charging. And so I love that, you know, about him. Like he's so aggro when he wants to be, but his style isn't like aggro as far as the way he approaches it, but he's doing something aggro. Like there's something really cool about that, you know? Like he doesn't look like he's putting a lot of like,
He didn't pop much off the jumps.
That too, yeah. But he would, you know, go big.
Yeah, he'd go huge. It looked awesome.
And he would try sketchy things, like as far as run-ups and run-outs. He didn't like big launch ramp jumps. Like he hated that. Like he was like, I don't want to feel stupid going off this giant like Evel Knievel jump. He wanted like some sketchy little 1.5 foot wide jump takeoff, you know? And for a while he was like, that was like a thing, you know, because the whole Heine Highway had like, you know, had already been established.
I never heard that term. The Heine Highway is a cheese wedge?
Well, yeah, the Heine Highway, which was like TB4, I think, was the first time where, you know, you'd cut out the side of like a mountain with this great, you know, I remember seeing it being like, holy shit, you know, because we were never going to do stuff like that. Like there's no way J2 and like Alters and Ninja were going to sit out there for 3 hours and make a perfect high. There's just not going to happen. And I was fine because I didn't want to do it. Like everyone knows I'm happy to shovel. Like I would shovel the shit. But I didn't want to sit because it just felt too precious. Like, oh, I'm going to make this one perfect. I don't know. It just all of a sudden it felt like not like snowboarding. It felt like I'm building a motocross jump. You know?
Yeah, it gets to a point for sure.
Yeah, there is a fine line between like, I don't know, it becoming like a Evel Knievel thing and just like snowboarding, you know, in general.
Well, it's great to see snowboarding is kind of coming around full circle right now.
Yeah.
And more people are just tapping into the flow of the mountain.
That's one thing I love about, sorry to cut you.
Well, but more than like the mega build.
Oh yeah.
Which is great.
That's why I was saying I love watching footage from Japan, because so much of it is like just seems to be on the mountain. Yeah. And and you actually go, I don't know, that's the kind of stuff when I see, I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be doing that. Even though I can't do some of the stuff, I can ride that same thing and charge next to it. And but that stuff to me, it just looks so floaty and stuff like that. It's so much more fun. That's one thing I wish about you had more of it. Who's the guy who did the great Side Hits movie?
Oh, Arthur Longo.
Artho. Like, I loved that. That was like my favorite movie, because I feel like a lot of snowboarding, unless it's not accessible. Like, kids see it and they're like, oh, I'm going to get to do that. Like, no, they're not. It's like, but they see a thing like Arthur Longo and they're like, I can do that. It's like when I was a kid and like the Lance Mountains early parts, like where he's just cruising and all of a sudden that's the shit that got you wanted to go outside and skate and dork around. Yeah. And it's like to see somebody that went on a snowmobile for 3.5 hours and built like a 20-foot wide kicker and they're jumping 140 feet doing a 1280 or whatever. It's like, what kid's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that tomorrow? Like on their local hill. But if they see somebody do a side hit and go 25 feet,
for sure,
they're going to pretend they're him. They're not going to go 25 feet, but they'll go 12 and they'll be stoked. I wish so. I would love to see more like parts like that. Ninja and I had an idea of like getting teams. It's a little bit like the King of the Road, but not crazy, where it's like everyone has to go to each resort, like small resorts, and you have to get a video part done, and you present that video part on that mountain, and you have 2 days. And no shovels are allowed. You can use a board. And it has to be like on mountain. Like you could jump a rope, but you can't be like hike beyond the mountain. And it would just be so fun because it would take, once again, the creativity, not just like I'm blasting doing so much. It's like, I could probably go from here to there, or to some weird little thing, Like in skateboarding, saw this great, I think showed that footage yesterday. I forgot the skater's name, but he went off a small, like 2-foot bank and did pretty much a backside alley-oop into a wall ride.
I saw that clip.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I was just like, dude, that's like something you would dream about, like, and you just imagine, but you would never think that you could do. And it wasn't huge at all, but it was sick. And to see skateboarding do that, I mean, snowboarding, where Arthur had some things like that, where it's like, I can go off that little 2-foot little, and I think I go fast enough, I might be able to go over this and then do that. Like, that would be, I don't know.
Yeah, he's a magician like that.
But it looks so fun. I remember watching that being like, dude, I just want to go out and ride tomorrow.
Well, I think that's just why, places like Brighton are so popular, because you can ride the lift and see all those hits and watch people do it. That event sounds amazing.
It would be so fun, because I feel like you'd have to judge half on like just kind of creativity and style and ingenuity. Like, whoa, I know, like you've always ridden past that one little thing. And and then all of a sudden some rider decided like, I can go off that one thing, I think, and go over here and land on that bush or whatever, like some weird gap.
I feel
over
like
something.
that's why when you look at like, I grew up in Massachusetts, and then, you look at people that are from Minnesota, Massachusetts, Finland, that grow up riding these tiny hills. Their board control is so good because like every little undulation in the snow becomes a spot, like
a potential for something.
At Brighton, you're like straight lining it to the 20-foot cliff into powder, and you're not even looking. Whereas when you got nothing, you can make something out of nothing.
Yeah, like just find these like independent resorts, and there's always nuggets. But if you don't need to look for the nuggets, you just go right by them.
Yep.
But if that's your job, like shit, what are we gonna do here? And everybody's in the same boat because they got to go to the same place, and you're like, okay, then, one group's there this 1 week, and then somebody else comes in, and then at the end, it's like everyone gets judged.
That would be
and
really
then you make a cut of it, and it's like a movie.
When you talked about that sketchy gap that Alters and Nate Cole hit, would that still exist, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It would still exist. But, I mean, there's a chance that he might have put a rope or somewhere, but it's the kind of thing, like, man, like, why would you ever think of it? Because it's like I say, it's not like a good run up through it. It's like through really tight trees and stuff,
All right, we're going to take a quick intermission here to talk to you about our good friends over at Pub Beer, who just happen to be the official beer of questionable decision-making and cheap fun. That's right. You heard it here first. Whether you're just having a couple, maybe you're watching the game, Pub Beer's a great option. cheap fun. Maybe you need 50. Did you just get dumped? Pub Beer's got you covered. Cheap fun every time. Pub Beer. Okay, big news from our friends over at Mammoth Mountain. They are now open for the 24-25 season, and they've got big changes. A reinvigorated, brand new main park layout with new features, more jumps, and brand new jibs. Mammoth is also bringing back the hemlocks on the backside of the mountain. You're going to have to hike a little bit. You're going to have to unstrap, but don't worry, because picture this: a freestyle big mountain paradise with a little bit of help from park crew. If you like what you're hearing, check out mammothmountain.com for current deals and to check out their loaded events calendar for the season. That's mammothmountain.com.
All right, we're going to take a break and talk about OnX Maps. If you're venturing into the backcountry, you need OnX Backcountry. OnX Backcountry is a GPS mapping app designed to help you explore the backcountry with confidence. That's one of the bigger problems, people getting lost out in those mountains. So with OnX Backcountry, you can scope lines like never before by utilizing 3D maps, guidebook route descriptions, and high-quality satellite imagery. You can visualize your perfect run. OnX Backcountry gives you the tools to interpret the information you've gotten from an avalanche report into a backcountry tour plan. Access avalanche reports, slope angle, and aspect shading, and their revolutionary avalanche terrain exposure scale layer to help you determine what terrain is best picked for the day and what terrain to be avoided. I think it's really cool how you can look at the mountains and see what aspects are sketchy and which ones are safe. No self-service, no problem. Download the maps before heading out, and you'll have all the tools you need to stay on track, no matter how deep you venture into the backcountry. Don't wait. Download the app today. Save 20% with code BOMBHOLE20. Again, save 20% with code BOMBHOLE20. Ride smarter, safer, and bolder with OnX Backcountry, and stay safe out in those mountains.
Okay, we got another topic here I'd like to get into that has came up when I was doing my research with a lot of people I talked to, and it's about you made Kingpin, but you're also part of the whiskey videos for a few years.
Yeah, I never was a part of the whiskey guys at all officially, but I helped them on some stuff, and I think we were just kindred spirits. You know, they might have partaken in a little bit more spirits than I did, but I was always game for everything. And I didn't meet him on that very first whiskey movie. I knew, Kearns and Johnson were, good snowboarders at the time. But that first whiskey movie was just so nuts, just with like all the beer breaking and stuff. And then the second one, they started doing like these Boozy the Clown sketches where the Boozy did all these stunts that were all pre-Jackass. We had been doing Big Brother videos, and there's some definitely stuff just like that and that. But yeah, those guys were rad, and I just got to know them. And at that time I was doing Blunt, and they wanted to be in Blunt, and so we did some stuff in New Zealand, and they were like kind of following along with us and shot some stuff and this and that. But they were also like, because they had a little bit of success, and they kind of became a little competitive. Like it was pretty funny, and they would leave notes at certain other spots that we were about to get there. Like, we already got this, or fuck this and that. And on Whiskey, I think it was Whiskey 2 or Whiskey 3, but I was out in Canada for a while, me and J2, and hanging out with them. And then I shot some video and photos of some Boozy the Clown stuff where he did a backflip off this roof and broke his heels, and it was really bad. And we took him to the hospital. And I mean, those guys at the time were so funny. And out of control, but funny out of control, like just nuts. I mean, I remember one day, and J2 is, I bring him up so much because I met him on the first movie, and J2 is the only snowboarder who's been in every one of my movies. And he was in all my movies because he was my friend. And I loved being with him, and therefore I want him in my movies, because if he's not in my movies, how can I hang out with him all the time? And so we'd go all over together. And remember, we were in Canada, and he was with me the whole time when I was with the whiskey guys. And I don't even know if we were filming much, but we were definitely partying and having fun. And one night we were at this bar, and they were just doing all this stuff and partying. And then at the middle of the night, we're driving home. Me and J2 are in the back of their truck, and Kearns and Johnson are driving. And all of a sudden they started fighting each other in the car, arguing. And then they pull out, all of a sudden they pull over and we're like, what the fuck's going on? Because we're in the back. And they go, that's it. And then they started fighting, and they were fighting on the middle of a railroad track, an active railroad track, in like the headlights of the car. Me and J2 were just pacing around with this nuts. And then a train came and stopped because they were blocking the train tracks, fighting each other. Like not like pummeling each other, but like grabbing each other, like, look. And then remember, just picture it so well in my head, and like this train operator walking out, like grabbing his own head, just being like, what the hell? And there's like, screw you, John, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden there's like, oh man, look, like hugging each other and get back in the car, and then we just drive off, and like the train is just operator that gets back into train. It was just like, those nights would happen so often with those guys, and they were just so funny. And, you know, they're both doing great. And they've gone up and down, but we have all of us have. But like there was one movie when they were doing Whiskey 3, they started wanting to do more sketches, and they had this idea. And at the time, I didn't have a driver's license for a long time because I got a DUI when I was like 21. Everyone lived in Vail knows the cops there are crazy. I got pulled over. I wasn't even like over the limit, but I had a drink at Girardi's before on the way. I was like 2 blocks away, and then they kept me in there for 30 minutes until I finally blew. Like finally made it over because my alcohol went up after drinking, you know? Because I just had drinking a beer before I left. Anyway, I got caught driving another time, not drinking, but lost my license for longer. So I didn't have a license for like 8 years. And I would drive everywhere like a grandma. And everybody that's been with me, especially J2, knows I would get so stressed with a cop would be behind me. Like, oh, dude, get all nervous because I was just so scared. But I had to drive. I had to make movies. So anyway, I drive up to Canada to shoot this movie. I was going to be the DP. This is all like film, and I had this movie movie camera that you can shoot dialogue with. It's silent. And the plan was for Kearns to pick me up on the Washington side and drive back over with him so I could get through the border. And so we go over there, and they stop Kearns because he has some parking ticket that he owed money on or something. They decided to run my stuff, and then they wouldn't let me in. And so we drive back to Blaine, Washington. We're at this Denny's having a beer or something, and he's like, what are we going to do, man? We got to shoot this thing. We don't know how to use that camera or whatever, so on and forth. And I'm like, well, how far is Canada, like really from here? Like far, far. He's like, it's like, I don't know, a mile or something, you know? I was like, well, I mean, there's got to be a place to get in there. And then he's just like, well, and so we drive down this neighborhood. It's like these neighborhood, just normal houses. And on the behind those houses are just woods. And I'm like, so Canada's right that way. And he's like, yeah. And so I take my skateboard and a small backpack, like, you know, almost like a JanSport backpack, but it was about that size, you know? And I'm like, all right, I'll call you. And so I just got out and went behind between two houses, went in their backyard and jumped over a little fence and just started walking through the woods. And then I'm like, started getting paranoid. I'm walking for a while, just thick woods. And then all of a sudden there's like another little cattle fence, jump over that. And all of a sudden I'm on this little like single road. And I start skating down the center of it, just giant woods on either side of me. And all of a sudden I see a speed limit sign and it's in kilometers. And I'm like, I'm in Canada. And then I kept skating and I ended up at this golf driving range. And then I got all paranoid, like they know I walked across the border. And so I rented some clubs and got a bucket of balls so I would be undercover.
Best cover.
And then called Kearns up and I'm like, I'm at so-and-so driving range. He's like, I know where that is. And so I'll be like, I'll be hitting balls. And so I was just hitting range balls. And he came and picked me up and then we shot the movie. And then the irony is I had to go back to Portland for something and then, because going back's no problem. And I ran through the border again a second time to finish shooting the movie.
Same spot?
Same spot. Because this time I knew. Like, yeah. I'm like, I know how far it was. Yeah. So I was less nervous. You know, I did it faster because I was like kind of paranoid, but I at least knew where to go A to B. You know, this is obviously pre 9/11. I don't know if you could have done that after that.
Yeah.
But it was like, we just did so much fun stuff with them. It was like, I mean, so many little things became out of that, you know, like it was just like, by then it was like whatever it took to make the movie, you would do it. You know, the irony is because I didn't have a license, I drove more because I couldn't fly and rent a car. But I remember
I heard a story about instead of renting, maybe.
Yeah, because like I flew out to Oregon once and I was shooting with, I don't even know who I was with. I think J2, yeah, obviously. And then I think Chris Owen and some people. And it was, this before I lived in Oregon, and I bought a car. I remember it was like a 84 Chrysler Cordova, which with rich Corinthian leather, and for like $400. And the guy sold it to me without a driver's license. And we drove that to the mountain and drove it to Bend and drove it all over. And we were shooting snowboarding. And it was this funny old car. And then when I was done with it, I just gave it to Chris Owen, who then drove it for like a while. And it was sketchy because the brakes were going out then. And then finally, I guess he was supposedly driving it one day and the brakes totally went out on the highway or something.
Wow.
And he drove over into the ditch, into the grass, and like went up an embankment and just got out and ran away. But we did all that. I mean, I flew to New Zealand once with a huge crew. I think it was with Gabe Crane and David Craig and some other people. And we had to rent a mobile home, and I had no driver's license. I was like, I don't even know how we're going to do this. And I befriended this woman on the flight. And I told her all about our situation and what we're going to do. You know, we're all in our 20s. And she's like, oh, I'll rent it for you. I'll put it in my name. I mean, I used my credit card, but she put it in her name for us. And we got a mobile home and drove it around New Zealand for 10 days filming. We didn't mess it up at all. You know, I was very careful with it. But it was the kind of things like, we're going to get this done. And we're going to figure it out. Chile, same thing. I got thrown into Chilean jail for that. We were with Sipniewski and Rob Defoe and I think Cody, and we're driving this van and they got pulled over and I didn't have a license and they threw me in this jail cell straight out of like Andy Griffith's show. And I'm literally sitting behind these bars in this empty jail and all the guys are outside trying to argue with this police all in Spanish. No one really knows much Spanish. And I'm just like, oh, this is not going to work out well. And I'm sitting there for like an hour, and then this guy who's sitting next behind his metal desk, classic, you know, middle-aged guy, and he's leaning back on like this chair, metal kind of military chair that spins around with like the springs, you know, that comes back, and the wheels kicked out, and he slammed to his back. And I remember just being like, turning my head and trying not to laugh. And he looks up at me from the floor and just shoots me a lap, like right through the bars. And I'm just like, just turn my head. And then he walks out of the place. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? And then 3 minutes later, he comes back and just lets me out of the jail cell without saying a word. And then I come outside and all the guys are sitting there and they're like, what the hell happened? I'm like, I don't know, dude, let's get in the car right now and go. Like, that was it.
Also, you got an idea while you were in jail there.
Oh, well, God, I just lived a terrible life. Yeah, well, when I was making the revival, Breckenridge, this is 99, was nice enough to do a snowboard park for us. And that was like the first time anybody had really done that, at least in Colorado. And they built an entire super park for us in the springtime. And once again, I didn't have a driver's license. And at that time, I was living in Portland. And I was going to drive there to film. And as I was coming through Steamboat, I got pulled over, literally going 7 miles over the speed limit. So the guy wasn't even going to give me a ticket. He was just going to give me a warning. But I didn't have a driver's license. So that was bad because I had been driving on a suspended, like the second time. No drinking or anything, you know, just driving. He let me go to the snowboard park. I was like, I'm going there. It's for my whole movie. And there was like all these riders coming. Everybody. It was pretty rad. Even like Giggy came from Austria and stuff. And but from that, I was supposed to get a minimum of 30 days in jail. And this is actually really crazy. So I go to court with my father, and this Fox Sports owed me a free commercial for using all this footage of mine in exchange. They never paid you money, but they're like, we'll give you a commercial and you can run the commercial of whatever you want. You know, you make one and we'll run it on Fox Sports or whatever. So I proposed to the judge that I would create an drunk driving commercial with this free commercial, found out all the statistics and demos and how many people would be watching. I'm like, I will do this for free and this many people will see it and this is the age group. And then he took that in consideration and gave me 5 days in jail. And so I thought I was going away for 30 and I brought all these books. And in that jail is when I wrote the idea for the Destroyer of all the interlocking stories of the characters. Like literally wrote all that out in jail in the Steamboat Springs jail and got out and got back to Portland, which was awesome because like I was expecting to be in there for 30 days. Like when I went to that, because I went to that court and from that court I was going to jail. And I was like, all right, 30 days. And so getting 5, it was sucked. But mentally I was like stoked because I was prepared for 30. So it was like I won.
Made the most of it.
And I made that commercial.
Yeah.
I made this commercial and it ran on Fox Sports.
And it gave you inspo for one of the best snowboard videos ever made.
Yeah, that was it was very fortuitous in an odd sense.
All right, we got another guest question. This one's from a Kingpin staple that goes by the name of Mikey LeBlanc. Here we go.
Hey Whitey, this is Mikey. I'm excited to hear your bomb hole. Hey, I wanted to ask you about your perspective on bringing up new riders. It felt like you always had some big names, but always took a chance on unknowns as well, and I always appreciated that. I did the same, and I learned it from you. So I wanted to hear about that, and thanks again for everything, man. You really set my whole career off, so I'm really appreciative to you and everything you did for snowboarding.
What a nice chap. Yeah, I mean, you know, like I was saying, like our Kingpin crew, especially in the early years, just friends. You know, like no one was that big, and whenever it was mainly like our core crew, and occasionally someone would drop out because either their riding would fall off or their interest, or you know something like that. It wasn't like you're done. And then one or two people would come in organically some way, which would usually be like, we already have a guy in our group and be like, dude, you should meet my friend, you know, so-and-so. And then we meet him, and if we liked him, he'd be in the group. Like literally it was like that. It wasn't like even riding start. Because it's like, to me, it was always like, we're hanging out with this person everywhere. I don't want to hang out with anybody I don't like. I don't care how good they are. It's like that. It's not fun. Like we did, I had a few people that rode with us that had ridden with some other film companies, and they mainly rode with these other companies, and they did like 1 or 2 days. And they're like, man, it's way different with you guys. It's like, there's no stress. They're like, people are like competitive on my other shoots. Like each guy trying to one up each other. And that was not how it was with us. There was never like that. Like an Ollie Goulet to like a LeBlanc or something. There's no way like him doing something like, yeah, none of that. It was this complete dumb shit the whole time, making jokes. And so like LeBlanc, for instance, he worked at Solid at that time, and I was, you know, Kurt Wastel and, you know, Kurt and Jeff and Matt Hale and all those guys were friends. I was living there, and he was like literally pressing boards. It was when like LeBlanc had long hair, and met him, and he was just fucking rad. Like I just liked him, you know? And it was like, this kid's cool. And I remember, I think I even hung out with him a few times before we even went snowboarding. And he was also in the same kind of music I was and stuff, which is always a big one. And so then that's how his whole thing came out. And then, you know, once again, if I like somebody and you're going to keep riding because I want to hang with you, you're going to be in my movies. And luckily for me, Mikey just started taking off, you know, but that's kind of how it was for a lot of guys, you know. Like JP, he was someone that we just met randomly in Brighton because I had moved to Utah. All of us lived in Colorado, and then me and Mikey and Cody and like Bobby Meeks and a few people all decided to like, we should move to Utah. Utah is where it is because jumps are getting bigger. And like the first house I lived in, it was me, Mikey, and Cody. And we also all played music. We had we purposely got a house that we could put our drums and music room. I also wanted to be in the city so we could see shows. We saw tons of shows that first year in Salt Lake. Anyway, so we met JP just riding, and he wasn't that popular yet, but we're like, dude, this kid's fucking crazy. Like, he's so good. Like, everything is just landing. And then we went filming with him, and I remember the very first day we were really filmed with him was he does this big frontside 5 and like 2 feet of kind of heavy pow and just stuck it. And it's in the Warriors, and we were all just like, holy shit. It was like the first or second person off the jump, but we all like damn. Because he was like an am, and I had pros with me, and he clearly like upped everybody in my group, kind of. But JP, you know, he was like super low key back then, like just funny and goofy. He still is, but he became a little bit more serious about things, you know. And but back then he was just like, they were like really spazzy, ate a lot of candy all the time, you know, him and Mitch. And Mitch, same thing, like he was JP's friend, but he was so good. Like it's, you know, people don't realize how good Mitch was then. And he, I really believe, would have been a giant snowboarder, but his faith was more important to him, which is really impressive. I mean, I tip my hat to him. I mean, it's not my thing at all, but to knowing that you're at that level and still going, nope, I'm going to do this. I mean, that says a lot about who he is, you know, definitely what he believes in, because that was at his peak. And obviously JP, boom, took off the next year. I remember that because his part, like Mitch's part in Warriors is right there with JP's. Mm-hmm. And, but like after that, like Wittlake was Brad Kramer. When I did the Substance, I think it was 95, mid-season movie. This guy, Brad Kramer, submitted some footage to me, and I don't even know how I got a hold of him. Must have been from somebody, but it was some footage of Thomas Gannon and Blaze Rosenthal. And there was some really cool stuff in there, and it was like pretty damn good. Like you'd get so much crap from other friends. And then from there, Brad started doing some stuff with me, and then I took the year off, you know, doing one year with Blunt. And then when I did Revival, I called Brad up, and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to do a movie. He's like, yeah, I'm in. And that same year, he's like, I don't even know if he told me about Wittlake or not, but he sent me this footage, and I remember looking at it after the transfer, and it was a backside 180 off, what's that place?
The I-80 drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another term for it.
Dome something.
The half dome. Thank you.
Dome.
Yeah.
Backside 180 off half dome. Unknown kid sticking it. I was just like, I don't know who that kid is, dude, but he's in the movie. You know, like, and so we started filming with Scotty, and I'm sure met Scotty, like right away. I'm like, this kid is fucking awesome. You know, because just me growing up being in punk rock and stuff, and he was like the ultimate weird punk rock kid and super anti-materialistic, which I was super into and all that stuff. Like I've never been a flashy guy, that kind of thing, like material things. And yeah, right away I was like, this kid's fucking all Kingpin for sure. It was more about let's hope he sticks around with us. And but I think all the right, and like Giggy was the same thing. I don't even know how Giggy came about, like because so many of the people stuck with us forever. If you look at it, you know, like 8 movies, like people like LeBlanc and J2 and you know, but Giggy was the same thing. I think it was a friend of a friend, and he just came out and did this one little shoot with us, and was just like, phew. And then meet him.
Didn't he win the Rookie of the Year?
Well, Scotty did too.
Yeah, and Scotty.
In the Revival, Scotty won Rookie, and it was so sweet because it was like a big party at Trans World thing at Vegas, and Scotty was super soft-spoken back then. And I remember him being like, I don't want to go on the stage, and he was like talking to me about it, and Brad, and I'm like, dude, just keep your hoodie on if you want, man, and like you don't have to this big presentation. He's like, I can do that? I'm like, yeah, you can do that. And he's just like, okay. And he did it. He was just like, and then left. But it was like, that's who he was, you know? And Scotty was like, lets his writings talk, you know, speak for himself. But Giggy, yeah, the next year, Giggy came in with Destroyer, also won Rookie of the Year, you know? But it was the same thing. Like he was just this funny, lovable kid. I remember going to this strip club in Portland. It was like this, you know, all the strip clubs in Portland were like dive bars. And he couldn't get in, so we literally like threw him over the fence because there was like an outdoor area in the back.
Yeah.
And threw him over the fence.
I think I might have been there.
I think you probably were.
Yeah.
And threw him over the fence because he was like, weighed like 120 pounds then.
Yeah. So pure.
Hang on, we got a guest appearance from none other than Ollie Goulet. I see him on the other side of the doggy door. Open that doggy door. Popping in.
Hey, what's happening?
What's up?
What's up,
What's up,
Ollie?
boys? What's up, white guy?
What's up, Holmes?
Shane?
When's the last time you saw
Grenier?
Whitey?
Oh, man. I think it was on the Tuesday.
Oh, yeah,
The
probably
Tuesday
2.5
up at
years
Brighton.
ago.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
we were celebrating twos and people were dipping twos and smoking twos and getting crazy.
Amazing. Well, we're wrapping Kingpin stuff, but
Yes.
wondering if you got a guest question.
Oh,
for
man.
Whitey.
I got a pile of questions. I got a lot of questions. But I guess before I say anything, I wanted to just say thanks to Whitey, because Whitey put me on and that got me paid, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So
Yeah, man. And
big
vice
shouts
versa.
to you always.
And vice versa, man.
Yeah.
Kingpin wouldn't have been Kingpin without you.
Well, I appreciate that. So questions. I got questions. The burning question in my mind is from way back in the day when we were partying in NYC. And we had this crusty little bindle. It was you, me, and Twos. And we discovered that the bindle wasn't performing. And then all of a sudden it was disappearing. And you may not remember this, but I just always wondered.
I don't remember that.
Where did it go?
I don't remember that because there's just so many nights of that in New York City.
Yeah.
You would need to be more colorful.
Right.
Like experience, like that something crazy happened.
No, nothing crazy happened, except that we had this gassy cocaine and then it disappeared.
What about the time we went to New Zealand and you bought all these weird porno magazines and then got stopped, I think, at immigration?
No.
And they were like, what is all this?
That can't be right. I'm not denying the porno magazines, but stopping at immigration.
No, I swear when we went through and you had a bunch in your bag that you took home and they didn't like take it, but they were just like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
this guy's bringing home a bunch of, because we were all like,
I don't know. It's a collection.
This is all pre-internet. So like you go over and you wouldn't have anything to do. It was like Mags. And there was this place called Mags and Fags. Remember? I got a picture
was that
of,
like in Auckland or something?
Yeah, I got a picture of Mitch standing underneath the sign because Fags is cigarettes over there. And I remember you bought a bunch of funny magazines.
Yeah, it happens. I remember those guys were looking at him though.
Yeah.
Mitch and JP and those guys.
Yeah, it was Ollie Goulet, Mitch, JP, and Timmy Osler. We all went to New Zealand.
Legendary.
Oh, and this is a very embarrassing thing, and you might remember this. We go heliing, and we took off from this. This guy was like he didn't use heliing for mainly for skiing. It was for hunting, and I was able to sweet talk him into taking us heliing, and he got us a guide, and we took off from a camping site, I believe, like not for camping site, his farm.
Oh yeah,
that's where we lifted off. It was like literally in a farm in a field. And then we flew over the mountains to go heliing. We're like 3/4 in the air toward the mountains, seeing the mountains. And I'm like, I left the bag at the farm.
The camera bag?
The camera bag.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Wow. Like it was in the grass. And so he had to fly all the way back to the farm and fly heliing when you're spending like, for us, it was a lot of money.
Right.
And it still was very cheap for now. It was like $300 an hour, and now it'd be like $1,200 or $1,600.
Yeah, poor Whitey.
But
always getting
I
thrown
was just
under
like,
the bus.
I was so in my head going, I have to say this.
That's amazing.
Oh man, that same trip, we got the Winnebago stuck up to its axles in the mud. And I was wearing white snowboard clothes, so I wasn't going to help a lot. What else happened? The thing that always used to happen to Whitey, he's got, what's the syndrome you have with your fingers where they just go super cold?
Raynaud's?
Yeah, Raynaud's.
Yeah. I've been standing next to Whitey when he's like just shaking his hands and he's like so sad and he's just like, why won't they jump already? So frozen.
Yeah, they'll turn dead white.
God, what else? Oh, I think one of my favorite Whitey things is when you've done something and then he's like, oh, that style was whack. And then so you got to go do it again. And what you come to find out later is that
I fucked up.
Didn't press the button, ran out of film, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
you got to make some excuse.
Yeah.
And Ali did one of the very first Misty flips ever on film. I shot.
Vid?
Right, that was
Warriors?
in
Caffeine, I think.
Caffeine, yeah.
I think 94.
Right, at Sunlight Ski Resort where they had those crazy kinky rails that not only kinked down, but they kinked right and left too.
Yep. And when you did your Misty, your head's like this close to the snow.
Oh, yeah, it was the good old days. You could be that close to the snow and still get paid.
Yeah, it was
Still
like over
counted.
off a hip kind of like thing.
Yeah.
I got a question. Ollie, you were a Kingpin staple, a lot of the videos. Of all the projects, which one was your most cherished year with Whitey?
I mean, we had a lot of fun with the revival, and that was like my best video part, but
That was the one you got your interview we did in Transworld?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we just had a lot of fun filming that year. Yeah. And it was all local, so it's tons of Brighton backcountry stuff, Grizzly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one of my favorite projects. The projects I always wish I could have been a part of would have been like Back in Black, which was super cool, and then not brown trout.
Back in Black.
Sexual Chocolate was my favorite.
Yeah,
I wasn't close to filming in that one. Like I wasn't really known, but I just love that movie.
I can't remember what happened with that because Caffeine was before that. You just fell off or something that spring.
It was, you were doing videos like every 6 months.
Well, Caffeine was an early season video. So
Right.
we shot from December to like June, like whatever, February.
Right.
And then we did Sexual Chocolate. But I don't know.
I think Sexual Chocolate was before Caffeine. Or no.
It's not.
No?
Nope.
I don't think, maybe I wasn't in Caffeine.
I
was in Brown Trout.
Caffeine was the one where you definitely did the Misty flip in Caffeine. 100%, because Harquin's in that movie.
All right, we're going to talk about Yeti for a second and their new Roadie 15 cooler. It's a personal size Yeti hard cooler. It's comfortable single hand or hands-free carry. You can bring it with you anywhere. It holds up to 22 cans if you're trying to have some coldies, or 16 pounds of ice. This small but mighty version of the classic Roadie family packs all your favorite essentials, cans, wine bottles, but in the most portable design yet. It's perfect for any ATV, paddleboard, or kayak, and easy enough to carry down to the pool or up to the campsite. If you're interested in getting your paws on the new Yeti Roadie 15 cooler, check out their website, yeti.com, for more info.
All right, we're going to take a brief intermission to discuss some incredible offers from our incredible friends over at Woodward Park City. Get your child's snowboarding adventure started correctly at Woodward Park City. Whether they're making their first turns or mastering front boards, Woodward Park City has a wide range of classes for all ages and all skill levels. If you're interested in progressing, head on over to woodwardparkcity.com.
All right, we're going to interrupt this programming to talk about one of my favorite brands, Autumn Headwear. Their motto is Style Matters, and it shows. If you look at their team, they got some of the most stylish riders on the planet. It's rider-owned. This is a brand owned by snowboarders. Brad Alband is the genius behind it. He's done great work over there. And they have great fits on the beanies, most importantly. You know, here at the Bomb Hole, we love what we call a deep resi fit, the reservoir tip, so to speak. So they have the surplus fit, which is kind of a resi. They have the shorty fit, which is shallow. You might catch Silk D wearing one of those. They also have the simple fit that's right in between. And I was just on their website. The apparel is impeccable. So great company, rider owned. If you're interested in getting a great beanie this winter, head on over to autumnheadwear.com and use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order, and keep that dome piece looking great with an autumn bonnet. I have a question. Whitey, have you ever done a run through a wall smelling salt by any chance?
No.
And do you have any interest?
Not particularly.
So that's
seems like it would be kind of painful.
Well, your loss, Shane and our wins, and Ali, you want one?
You know my record. I'll try one. Here we go.
Oh, I hit the light. Damn it. Hang on.
What's the record?
Oh, you know, sometimes I throw shots on the ground and sometimes I exhale instead of inhale.
Yeah. Are you going to throw him another one, Shane? Off the forehead.
That was perfect. Are we doing this? 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Oh, you need one? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we're back.
That's the first one I did for real. Woo! That sucks, actually.
It does not suck. It's great.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
It's actually fake news. Woo!
That's wonderful.
All right, ready for another 3 hours.
I love how that's a thing.
Okay.
Yep, we're still here.
We're still here.
Face.
All right, what do we want to talk about, Ollie?
Right. So, something that's been on my mind is I was wondering, Rob, I noticed you changed your name from Whitey to Rob McConnaughy, which is your name, and then back to Whitey on social media. And I just always wanted to know the answer to the why.
Well, the only time I did that was because I was so disheartened when, not to get political, but when Donald Trump won, I was very depressed. You know, he kind of brought the worst out in the worst of people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you saw people that have been racist their whole life, but not really outwardly expressing it, feeling confident that it's okay.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden like get a pass to do that. And it just was like, I don't want to be associated with them. Not that Whitey ironically was the opposite, because I got the name Whitey being in an area that was all black, and I was friends with most of my friends were, because that's just where DC was. And I just was kind of my little way of protesting against the whole Trump administration back then.
Right.
But my new thinking now is it's like, maybe just be Whitey and be like, someone's got to be a good Whitey, and to be that one.
Right. Well, it's,
you know,
it's
like to be
iconic. Like you're Whitey. That's who you are.
Yeah, but
I
it's
actually
like,
didn't know your name was Rob till 2 seconds ago.
well, a lot of people don't, and it's fine.
Knowledge drop.
And I have no problem, but it was just like, you know, it sucks to be, because it never was a thing, a statement, you know, meaning anything to do with race at the time. You know, I'm from an area that was predominantly African American, and so you grow up there, you have friends with all kinds of kids. And I was into punk rock, and I bleached my hair white. And I had white hair for a while with snowboard days too. So that's where it started, you know, so that was it. It was no more than that. But then all of a sudden, no one even thought about it. But then all of a sudden times get weird, and people think it's that. And it's like, that's the last thing I want, because I hate that stuff. And I've always been, anybody who knows me, I've been very much that way and very stated about it, where I've had people say things snowboarding wise, and I will shut them down quickly.
Well, in the words of J2, you don't get to pick your nickname.
Yeah, that too.
Right.
Yeah, that too, man. Like I remember once we were. This was more the negative side of thing, but I was with Russell. This is probably 95, 96 at best, and we're at some, I think in Colorado, at some shoe store, and he's looking at some sneakers, and he's like across the store, he's like, Whitey, check these out, man. Like he was like, these are totally for you. Like there was kind of like a style I would have liked, you know? Like nothing weird, nothing saying, hey Shane, these are yours. And this old lady like goes to Russell, and she's like, what did you call him? And then I was just like, oh no. And I was just like, that's my name. Like, you know, like don't, because you could tell she wanted to attack Russell because he was black. Yeah. And I was just made me so mad. But it's just so funny because it's never, you know, whatever. I mean, I've done tons of stuff with like, you know, I've done a lot of commercials since, and I've done stuff with like, you know, Kobe Bryant or Kevin Hart and stuff, you know, and obviously there's sometimes an awkward moment, but it's like, I always make it a joke right off the bat, you know?
Yeah.
My name's Whitey. I know it's stupid. It's fine. You know, like, let's acknowledge that right now. But it's like, you know, it's just like you say, you don't pick your nicknames, you know? Right. It's like, the irony is when I moved to Colorado, I remember it so fucking well. When I moved there, I did not introduce myself as Whitey to anybody because I didn't want the nickname Whitey anymore. And it was like a new chapter in my life. Left DC. I'm meeting new people. I just became friends with like, I think Stevie and a few people. And some friends from DC were visiting. And I can picture it perfectly in my head, like in this living room. And someone said something like, Whitey, what are we doing later? Like, because they were just in town. We're in Breck. And then I'll see my two new friends look over, like, what's that? Because kids love nicknames. And I was like, and I just remember like a deer in headlights. And they're like, who's Whitey? And they're like, that's Whitey. What do you mean? That's Whitey. And I was just like, no!
It followed you to Colorado.
And then that's it. Because it's like, especially when you're like 19, 20, kids fucking love nicknames.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got to say, Ken Block, he really promoted it. Because like when all my early movies, I would say Rob Whitey McConaughey. You know, that's how it was written in like the first 4 movies. And then when I started with Blunt, Ken, unbeknownst to me, when I ran some of my photos, he just wrote Whitey. No last name or anything. Like my name was like Cher or Sting or something. And at first I was just like, dude, like no, you know, no one's gonna know it's me. Like, you're a kid, you want credit for that photo. It's like first or second photos in a mag. You're all like, this is stoked. I can't tell my mom this. She doesn't know what Whitey is. And Ken's like, no, it's branding. Who's like the king of branding before, you know? And I was just like, and it was smart, you know, because then it became known. I remember being in Japan for something and someone's like, oh, you Whitey, you know, just as the first name. And so it was kind of funny that it was like, took Ken to do that. And so that's
Marketing
that's why.
mastermind.
Yeah, it was like just when he was doing drawers. I think it was even before he started DC. But yeah, he was thinking that way even back then. So it's kind of funny.
I have a note here. This is from Mikey LeBlanc provided this useful information. He wanted me to talk about the Whitey freakouts in the backcountry, particularly a quote that you said, we can put a man on the moon, but we still can't figure out how to get snowmobiles from getting stuck. Maybe if you could elaborate on that, Whitey, that'd be great.
I don't know about the snowboarding one, the snowmobile, and just that I fucking hate snowmobiles. And I always had and have a contentious relationship with them. They just never seem to do what I want. And just the idea of this, I know some people love snowmobiling, but to me it was just like, what are we doing fucking riding these things all the way? There's snow everywhere. But yeah, I used to always, man, especially in like the later 90s, I got better after, but man, if I was in the woods and getting stuck or just something, I would just scream like to the heavens, like never at anybody, just like, fuck, like so mad, but it was like cathartic, and it was like letting all this energy out. But people that didn't know me were like, freak. And I remember we were shooting with some rider who was like new to the group, and I had a freak out, and I just could see like panic in their face. And I'm like, I'm not yelling at you. Like it's nothing to do with you. Because they were like terrified that I was going to, I don't know, murder them or something. But yeah, it was just funny. And JT used to always fucking...
I remember too, so he'd really like to amplify that.
Oh yeah, he would push those buttons.
He would try to so much, man. And I remember he used to get mad, like, because I remember like I would always like air punch him, like just like, like get close to his face. Never ever touched his, but he would just laugh even more.
Good times.
But yeah, he pulled some practical. I don't know about practical jokes, but he did a couple things. There was one good one where we were in Tahoe for a few days, staying in this super shitty. Oh God, like J2's farts. Not to sidetrack, but on the same shitty hotel, it was so gross. We slept in sleeping bags on the beds, because the beds were so gross. But his fart was so bad one night, he woke me up from the smell, not the sound, like in the middle of the night. Just like, what the f-? I remember opening the door and it was like 10 below zero, but just kept the door open. And it was like, the door is 3 feet from the bed. It's this teeny place. But that same trip, I don't care about my boots. I never even like take the liners out. They're just like stinky. And this one trip, it was like super wet because we were hiking or something. And I took out the liner and there was a giant salmon skin, a piece of like smoked salmon wrapped around my liner that J2 had put in my boot 2 or 3 days earlier. And I had been snowboarding with salmon wrapped all around my boot for 2 to 3 days. And I remember being like, sitting on the bed and like pulling it out. And I didn't know it, but J2 was like waiting for this moment for like 3 days to happen. Or maybe he forgot, but he soon realized. And I was like, what? Because I'm just like completely like, what the like, how would this get in my boot? I don't even know it's all rotten at this point. And it's like, what the fuck? And then Tooz just started laughing so hard.
How did this salmon get
and then I was like, and then I saw him and was like, oh, what the fuck? I was like completely confused. And then he's like, I put that in there 3 days ago or so. And I'm like, oh my God.
We got a guest question from Ninja. This is another J2 related story. Here we go.
Do we need to let him go?
I'm bowing out.
Oh yeah, sure. Are you out of here, Ollie?
I'm going to take off.
I know you got to go.
But I love the 2 stories. I love you guys.
Thanks,
I'm looking
buddy.
forward to seeing
Love
this
you
thing
too.
in real life. And yeah.
Thanks again, dude.
One
Thanks
love
for coming
always.
by. Appreciate you. Much love, brother.
Later, bros.
See you, Ollie.
All right, here we go. That was a great guest appearance. This is from Ninja. Here we go.
Hey, Bombhole. Hey, Whitey. Ninja here. Whitey, tell the story of that time we were in New York with Tooz. I think Bill Thomas was there. There was a bunch of people there. I can't remember that far back, but it was in the early Jackass days. We walked into this bar, and the bartender freaked out and started saying, "You guys are in Jackass," meaning you and Tooz. And it started handing us cases of Budweiser bottles. What happened after that? And then what happened the next morning downstairs below Tuz's apartment building with Moby. See ya.
Well, the story is pretty funny, but Ninja definitely doesn't remember a few things correct, or selective memories. Back then, this is like probably 2001 or so, or no, this is like, 2001. I had shot a few things on Jackass from Big Brother. I kind of did that and shot some TV episodes, just a few. And, but those guys have been all friends of ours. And, so this corresponds to this. So we're at the bottom of this place, Niagara. They had like a downstairs, and our friend John Bush worked there. And it's almost like a weird dungeon basement, like with this like old stone walls from like early 1900s or something. And Ninja picked up a bottle. No one gave them us, but it was like all these like empties, like to be recycled or something. And Ninja picks one up and just throws it down like this long hallway. It's all, like I say, stone or brick around, and just smashes against the wall. And then all of a sudden he threw another, and maybe J2 threw one, and like smashed at least 4 bottles in this bar. It was like super brazen. And then somebody comes down and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then Ninja's like, it's okay, they're with Jackass. And the guy's like, all right. And then just moved on. And for some reason, let it happen.
That's fine.
Like that, yeah, that was
okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And we weren't filming or anything like that. And Ninja was the instigator, but he also said that, which was so fucking funny, because J2 was in an episode of Jackass with LeBlanc. And then outside that place, there's like a sidewalk and a little pizza joint on slices, and everybody's just drunk and laughing. And we all had bought in slices of cheese pizza or whatever, and Andy Dick, that guy, for some reason was there, and just being weird and kind of creepy, seeming like how Andy Dick is. And Ninja was just said something like, just shut up, and just slapped him in the face with this piece of pizza, like backhanding somebody with a cheese pizza. And then Jason Dill was there. He was always in that crew. And then Jason Dill, I think, like kicked him in the butt, like kicked him into the road. It was like, I forgot. It was like, you just been bitch slapped with a pizza or something like that. It was so fucking funny. And then it was just like one of those nights where just like everything, thing after another is just ridiculous and just laughing, like where your cheeks are hurting in the morning. And then that morning, we're outside of the apartment. J2 dated a girl, Amy Gunther, back then. And she was friends with Moby, her good friends with like dating him, and he owned a tea shop with her right down the street. And she was out there, and Ninja or J2, he was talking to her. At first, Ninja's like, who the fuck's J2 talking to? He's talking to some weird old bald guy. And then we're like, realize that it's Moby. And then we were talking about like, yeah, we were smashing all these bottles. And Moby says something like, nothing's better than the sound of, nothing's more satisfying than smashing glass. And we were all just like, okay. It was just one of those, the capper to a weird evening. But it was like, man, like, that was the thing, is like, when we would just have so much fun hanging out, and it was like always an excuse. Like when we did Destroyer, we did all these sketches, and one of the big things was we shot all this stuff in New York City. But we didn't need to do that in New York City. It was like, we were hanging out in New York a lot then. I'm from back east, and J2 is from New York, and like I say, his girlfriend was in New York, and we just had a lot of friends there. New York was so fun back then. And so we're like, we want to hang out in New York and not pay our own money. So the excuse was to like write these sketches for New York City so we can all go to New York City on a sponsor's dime and use the money from the movie too. And we shot all these sketches there. But like, it was like Tuz and Josh Dirksen and Otterstrom and Nate Bozong, and I think left Utah at that time, and obviously Tuz and LeBlanc. And then we like bought this
Dirksen, Chad O, maybe, or
Chad and Dirksen, and then we bought that mini bus there with cash. And my plan was to jump it into the Hudson Bay. And Amy Gunther and somebody else from New York were like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Yeah, we can do that." And they're like, "You can't do that." Meaning like you absolutely should not do that. Physically, yes, but they were so serious. I was just like, maybe I shouldn't do this. They're not even laughing at all. And so we just left it on the side of the street after we were done. Because you could buy cars.
Where is it now?
Yeah, exactly. But we had so much fun there, like just doing so much goofy shit for like a week or so. I mean, it was just constant laughing all the time, you know? Like we were constantly razzing Nate Bozone. He was like 19, never been out. This was before, you know, tattoo drinking Nate and so forth. But he was just this funny kid. And me and Choose just loved like screwing with him. You know, it was so fun. Like make him buy booze, even though he's not 21 and he's never even bought booze before. But he would be able to do it because we were just in all these, New York was a different time then. But I mean, I think all the, like, you know, getting a same theme where it's just like, we're hanging out with friends and we have to be making a snowboard movie. It was more like that. You know?
I got a question. So all these skits, they're a staple in a lot of these Kingpin videos. And I grew up quoting, you know, like Chad Ho's like, screw this, man. Let's play something that really rocks, and like puts the tape in or whatever and all that stuff. So out of all the actors that you've had, all of the talent, not on snowboard talent, but in terms of, you know, acting skills, who's at the top of the totem pole and who's sitting at the bottom?
Man, I don't know if any of them you'd call acting talent.
Mikey's pretty good.
Mikey's good because he's just so absurd. I mean, I'd say probably Mikey's the most confident because he's just the most absurd and outgoing and goofy. I've done a bunch of stuff with like, even since then, with a lot of like sports stars. And, you know, I did all these EA Sport, all the skate intros for all the 3 skate games, and so they're all skaters. But the way you're good, the worst thing to do if you're acting is to be concerned about looking like an idiot. As soon as you worry about looking like an idiot, you will look like an idiot. Like, I just don't want to look like an idiot. And then you do something, you will look like an idiot. And Mikey doesn't care about looking like an idiot. So he doesn't look like an idiot.
That's great advice.
He's just funny. Like Will Ferrell is never worried about looking like an idiot. And that's why he's always funny.
Yeah.
It's like when you see so many people like, oh, just, you know, let's just do, and then it's like they look like they're nervous and stuff, and, you know, it's just bad. So, and a lot of that just comes from, I think, this confidence of not being on camera. You know, like someone like Otterstrom, he's insane snowboarder, and he's a fucking super mellow, super good guy, but he was self-conscious. I don't think he was so worried about looking dumb. He was just like nervous because he had never done it. And then some people just aren't nervous about anything, you know? And that's usually the best. Like someone like Chad, he would be way better the next time and the next time. And then there's some people that are just so concerned, like, I just got to be cool, you know? But that luckily Kingpin, none of our guys were cool. You know, like we never hung out with anybody that was like, oh, I just don't want to be presented this way or something like that. And it's like, well, then you're not going to be in our movie. You know, you can be in MacDog's movie, you know, or whatever, or Standard or whatever. You know, I mean, no, not saying anything about them, but some people are definitely more concerned about being like, I'm just a rad pro snowboarder, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just, once again, it just come down to fun. I think all of us just wanted to like crack jokes. And, you know, I remember being out with like Brandon Bybee, who I loved Bybee because, you know, he was this full Mormon, but he wasn't like, he just wasn't precious about it or whatever. He would never like talk shit about you saying something or whatever. He would just enjoy the moment. And even he has these, you know, faith he believes in strongly, but he's not going to press it on you at all, you know? And like, I remember he was getting married or going to be getting married. And I hope this has been Brendan, but he had never had sex at that time. He's young, but his wife, or his upcoming wife, fiance, had a kid. She's clearly had sex before, you know, had to have at least once. And we were all building jumps, and he's kind of new to the group, and Ali Goulet was like giving him tips for like fellatio or something. And because you could see he was actually interested on some level for sure. But then Ollie would say something, and Ollie's like, it's not like chewing gum. You don't chew on it or something. And he's just like, stop it now. Like, stop it. Like, but he would be interested, and he'd ask a question, and then he'd hear it, and it would be too much. But it was just like we would just constantly be like just joking the whole time. We were doing stuff, and it was just so fun. Like, no matter who it was, like you knew if you're going to be building jumps, people were just going to be snapping on each other for an hour and a half. That's all we did. I mean, Shane knows it.
Absolutely. I mean, when you just said that, one time we had gone on a trip to Albany for maybe happy hour, and Shem Roos at the time, his wife had put a dildo in his boot, so hoping that TSA would pull it out and everyone would laugh. We get to Albany, and then Bybee left, and I think we covered all of his stuff in porn, and then the dildo, because he said, my wife unpacks my bags. So, I was like, oh man, that'll be amazing. And so when you say that, yeah, it was always that, because I think like 3 days later someone got a call. And it's like, you guys are jerks.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man.
You got J2 in the crew too. It's amplified.
Yeah, he was just so great. I mean, like Jason Murphy was nice, but he was a little bit like more stuck up about the religion sometime. I remember I was kind of mad at him once. We were going on his road trip, and Bybee was with us. I think we were going to Idaho. And I was listening to this new Beck album at that time. And it was very sexual, but it was like super groovy. It's like kind of almost like a Prince sounding album. And I remember Bybee at one point, it's like, he talks really high content. And he's like, I mean, this is really good. Like he really liked the song or something. And then Murphy's like, you wouldn't like it if you knew what the lyrics were about. And I remember, just shut up, Jason. Like, let him enjoy the song, Like, but he was just like one of those kids. Like, I just thought I always liked him because he was like, I don't know, just easygoing. But nothing can throw him. Like, he's still going to be a Mormon, Like, Absolutely. He doesn't really matter what's going on around him because he feels strong about himself. And I don't know. I just always liked that.
And now a message from Ryan, who works on the Academy's team at Arc'teryx. He writes, Hey Bombhole, the Arc'teryx Backcountry Academy is coming to Mammoth, California from March 7th to 9th, 2025. My bosses wanted me to let everyone know that snowboarders and skiers are welcome to join the 3 days of educational clinics, film screenings, and live music. I tried to tell them this is a snowboarding podcast, but they said I have to mention skiing, so this is me mentioning skiing. But for the snowboarders, the Academy is a great place to progress your skills in the backcountry. If you're looking to get off the resort and hit some natty features, come learn from Arc'teryx athletes and expert guides. There are clinics for all backcountry skills levels. Whether it's your first time being on a splitboard or you're looking for advanced terrain reading and feature evaluation, we have something for you. Ride and learn from athletes like Sean Miskimen, Victor Daviette, Joey Vosberg, Joe LAAX, and many more Arc'teryx rippers. The clinic lineup is live. Check out all the backcountry education the Academy has to offer. Browse through the options, plan your stay, call your friends, and then jump back onto our site on November 27th at 12 o'clock Pacific time to grab a spot. Come hang with me, Ryan, from Arc'teryx at the Academy. Head over to mammoth.arcteryxacademy.com to learn more.
All right, we're going to talk about Herschel outdoor equipment. You may have seen them. We give them to all of our guests that win Name That Video part. Pack them full of Bombhole merch. They are sleek, and they're introducing a brand new performance line for travel and the outdoors. They got Alpine inspired and designed with multi-functionality for the first chair or last minute flight. I personally use all Herschel gear when I travel. I use the roller bag. I use the big roller bag. They got great backpacks. And the one thing I like, you can take your backpack and slide it over your roller bag, and you can be a true pro traveler. All their stuff's really well made, and they're building a team. They got Arthur Longo and the Dust Box on board already. So if you're interested in getting some sleek new travel gear, check out Herschel.com.
Guys, if you're getting after it this season, protect your dome. You're going to need a helmet, and we have to recommend the Mod BC from Oakley. Made of a durable polycarbonate shell with an Oakley-designed 360-degree fit system, it weighs just under 450 grams. That's light as a feather, making it one of the lightest Oakley helmets available. A first of its kind, the Mod BC helmet features a modular beanie with a ventilated visor to replace a traditionally bulky liner. It's comfy, it fits great, it's going to keep your dome piece protected. Don't overthink it. Get yourself a helmet from Oakley.
All right, I want to get into something here for the snowboard nerds out there. You know, there's been a lot of iconic video parts throughout all of your movies. You know, you got like Huffman and Gigi and Wittlake. I even love the Zach Leach like skateboard part. You got obviously Jeff Anderson, Happy Hour, MFM. There's so many iconic parts. But if you were to pick your top 5 favorite video parts that you filmed, over your career?
I mean, I think the one that stands out, and a lot of it is because how it helped me, would be Ingmar Bachmann from Substance, because that's just real early in the days. This is like, I did Sexual Chocolate in '94. Back then, I did 2 movies a year, and that had a little bit of steam, even though it was a small movie. But the right people liked it, kind of, and Mike Ternasky, who was running Plan B at the time, was doing Type A. And back then, skating and snowboarding was very kind of interlinked a lot more, like Pacific Drive and all that, and Nate and, that whole world. And I met Ingmar that summer in Switzerland at this snowboarding camp in Verbier, and he just blew us away, like just in these few hits, and he had a little part. And then so the next year, they're like, oh, Ingmar wants to come out to Utah. And I was still living in Colorado, and we went out there, and I was with J2 again, and I forgot who else was with us, but I hung out with him for like a month, maybe not even that, first time in the States, and he was just murdering it, and it's kind of like what you're saying. He's from like a place, Sweden, small hits, but just instantly took that little things on everything that was big for the time and stomping it. And a lot of people, Scandinavian riders, can't translate the powder right away because they're so used to landing flat-footed and stomping, which of course will just tumble you over the bars. But Ingmar somehow just did it. Boom. I remember we got Jackson with like 2 feet of powder, just stomp, like first hit. We're just, what the fuck? And then we did one little thing and we went down to Big Bear or Summit, and that was it. And we put his part out from shooting for a month and a half in February. And that part still stands up today. Like, it's crazy for the time and how short were people shoot all year to show it, and he did it in like the equivalent of like 20 days of filming. And so when that came out, it was just like everybody's like, fuck, dude, that's a game changer. And I still look at that thing and it's like, it's not touching with his hands even, which there was a lot of dragging back then. So that's got to be up there. And the song and everything is pretty big. And then the other big parts, I think it's like, I don't know, like maybe JP in Warriors. And I also like that because a lot of this is like, it's so fun to bring riders that people don't know. It's like Peter Line, after he was killing it, having his part, everyone's anticipating it, but it's not surprise. You're expecting him to have a good part, It's like Jamie Lynn after Toy Machine. You're expecting him to have a good part.
Jamie
Thomas.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie Thomas after Toy Machine. So you want to see it, but you're not surprised. So with someone like Ingmar, most people didn't know who the fuck he was, And same with JP. Most people didn't know who JP was unless you lived in Brighton at that year. And so we were like, whoa, who's this? And like Wittlake in Revival, same thing. No one knew who he was. It's awesome. And I love Wittlake. And then Giggy, same thing, Destroyer, Rookie of the Year. And I think a lot of it has to do with like, the association with those guys and stuff. And I think you said 5, but I might go 6. But LeBlanc, his brainstorm part is so big. It's massive. But I like all LeBlanc's kind of stuff because he's just so, he's just this little whatever, pocket Hercules. He's just like stomps shit.
Hercules.
What a great description.
Wow.
Holy
like he's
Mike.
He's just always one of those dudes, just like in the Warriors, even like where he's just would be like, Gah! Just like land and barely bend his knees and just keep going. Like his part in the Kingpin Chronicles and stuff was great, and all of his little things, But yeah, I'd say Brainstorm, and then Mark Frank probably in Back in Black is another big one because we did that fun sketch, but he backed it up tenfold with his writing,
Stomping around in the puddles.
Yeah. That was like a fun build. We just did that in Portland. But it was, but I think those are probably some of my favorite parts, But, like I say, a lot of the parts are kind of just association with that year and stuff because it is like, it's such a friendship, it's like remembering your memories. Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, that was Snowboard. It's like, that's what I did that whole year. Because I hung out with those people outside of the mountain, we'd hang out all summer, so it's just like, oh, that was the year I got to hang out with these people all year.
Well, speaking of the summers, I felt like, from the little that we had done together, everybody looked forward to the summer, to the skits.
Yeah.
Like that was like the reward to filming your part.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that was like, I mean, beyond legendary as far as the crew goes, that was the reward. You know, make it through the year, film a dope part, and then you're going to film a skit.
Yeah. It's just like, and you know, especially when we moved to Portland, it just worked really well because Portland was cheap and you could get houses for cheap. So people would come out and there's a lot more resources. And it was like, you know, they could also go up to Hood in the summer if they, you know, so it just really worked out well, you know, so riders they get to do the sketch, but then they also go up to the Hood and do that kind of thing. And then, you know, go tubing and so forth and then do something silly shit and, you know, going out to bars and stuff because we were all young then and it was fun. You know?
What year did you get on Kingpin Productions, Shane?
It was the Brainstorm year.
That was the first year, and I thought you might have done something on Destroyer. I can't remember.
Well,
or not.
I had helped out before that.
Yeah.
But I think it was part of the union of us all hanging together.
Yeah, I mean, because I met you even in the 90s in Vail when you came out from Vermont, snowboarding.
And then when I started coming to Salt Lake, it's a funny memory. I remember we were in the foothills when it used to snow like 4 feet.
Yeah.
And you guys were up there, you and Andy.
Yeah.
And I remember we were all like hitting some jump at night above the city. And you and Andy were like, oh, if you guys ever want to link up, let's link up. And I just always remember, like, because now it doesn't snow that much up in the foothills.
Yeah, not as much.
But it was like, that was the jam. Everyone was up there all night just doing weird stuff above Salt Lake City.
Because you hit that one hit from the revival with Ali from the cover, too, because I got that photo of you.
Yeah.
So you were definitely all around then.
But officially, it was the Brainstorm year.
Yeah.
Because I remember, because before that, you know, I wasn't even thinking much about filming. And then the, 401 snow happened, overlapping with the Destroyer year.
Yeah.
And then one time you were like, what about if you just like, instead of telling everyone about yourself, you help other people? And I remember at the time being like, damn, I wish someone would have said that a long time ago. But then you were like, come over, we'll have a beer and I'll show you how to load film. And I think the next day we were filming Mikey and Twos.
Yeah.
Like on some crazy kink rails.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, when we did, Shane, when we did the Mark Frank thing, we shot that. You came out and helped me with that.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
I remember you telling me about the editing process being pretty insane. Like the way you guys would just like stay up for a couple days and just chop up movies.
It was nonstop.
It wasn't too late though. We rarely stayed up past 11 or midnight for the most part, unless it was like we had to get it edited because we would rent like a digi beta deck because those things back then were like 12, 15 grand. And so it wasn't worth buying it. So I'd rent it from this guy for like $600 a day, which still was a decent amount of money then. So we'd have to offline it and there would always be some issues. So it would take a little while. So we would make sure we'd get that done and like checking it over and over and be like, fuck, try it again, another tape. But I feel we'd edit like all day for sure. And we'd edit until like late, but we'd always go out, like it
was the perfect combo of fun.
Yeah. We'd do this. Yeah. You'd feel good. You'd like edit to like 10:30 and we'd go out and see a show or have some drinks and then you'd sleep in until like 10, get breakfast and go back in there at noon and then edit all day. It was like pretty chill. It was that office location we had was sweet. I mean, now it's 5 times as much money and it's like a giant store where my office used to be. It's kind of funny.
I got another question. In regards to your guys' project, some people stayed with Kingpin for pretty much their whole careers and others moved on. What would happen when somebody jumped up to MacDog? Would you be pretty bummed?
It depends.
Not jumped up. Sorry, that's
fine. I mean, I can't think of any. The only people I can think that jumped to MacDog was like a JP or
Seth.
Seth who?
Hewitt.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But when Seth jumped, he never had a giant part with us, even though I really like Seth. He always had a smaller part. He had that one in Brainstorm. And then on Happy Hour, I didn't shoot Happy Hour. I went and did Jackass, shot the first Jackass movie and wrote on that. And so I was I knew I produced it and got the sponsors and worked with Brad, but it was kind of like Brad's thing as far as like picking the riders. I think 2/3 were kind of the same. But like when JP left, we were a little bummed, but it was also a lot of it was because Forum got started and then he got on Forum, and Forum was going to make a movie. And so I understood the obligation, it was like, you got to do the Forum thing, and we were bummed, but it was okay, and like JP was rad, but he definitely never was like so in our, like JP wouldn't be someone to be going out with us and partying. just because it's not JP. So it was a little less painful, than if it would have been someone like LeBlanc or Ali or, anybody like that, or Giggy or Wittlake or so forth, But I don't know. I feel like there's never been anybody never been a heart removed, maybe an appendix that I can take
Was
one.
there beef between, because it was Mac Dog and it was Kingpin. Did you guys ever have beef?
No. I mean, when I started, it was clearly, Standard and Fall Line had the production, quality. But Fall Line we all thought was kooky. But then they did Six Pack, which was like a Sione, which was oh shit, this is good riding and good quality. And then there was Mac Dog, who had more on this pulse of what was the cool snowboarding. Hard Hungry and Homeless was he had the right people for sure. He was at the right place with the right people. And then Blakely was too and stuff, but Mac Dog had it all kind of together. So he always was kind of clearly the guy selling the most at the kind of riding I liked. But it never felt like a competition because I wasn't there's no way we're going to ever sell as many as him. He just always had everything so dialed product-wise. He would sell DVDs and he was pushing Snowboard Rock, which I didn't like, but it was popular. It was the smart thing to do sales-wise. Clearly, because that's what was in vogue. I mean, those bands were selling millions of copies The Offspring and stuff. But I hated that kind of stuff. And so no one's going out and buying Sammy Davis Jr., the kind of shit I wanted to play that was just odd music and then some obscure DC band from the 80s that no one knew. But I didn't care. It was just more this is fun and this is cool. I mean, I was on Blunt. It was not Transworld, but we said, we didn't care. It was fucking way cooler than Transworld in our heads. It was always kind of fun. It's fun being the evil stepbrother a bit. You don't have as much high hopes, and people aren't putting this bar on you that it has to be great. So if you do anything amazing, people are holy shit, did you see the so-and-so? There was when we did the revival, people weren't expecting us to do that great. Or when we had a part like Ingmar or something in revival, people would be excited because they weren't expecting it. And that's, I don't know, to me, it's always fun. I'm a guy who roots for the underdog in any game, always. Yeah, so it's I never felt any competition to them, if I don't know, we really didn't keep up with it, to be honest. We knew they hit this kicker, but it's what can you even do? I mean, it's what are you going to do? Build the kicker bigger? I don't know. We just do what we can do, I mean, we used to all destroy jumps. That was a big thing. If you spent, and we're talking not today, we're talking building a jump for an hour, which is nothing compared to things people do nowadays. But if we'd be fuck this, I'm not letting someone hit the same jump we spent all day on. Because for a film company, not to mention the landing was bombed out anyway, but still, they would do the same thing. But that's been going on for a while, I think. I mean, that was even going on in 95 and stuff.
People leave their wedges up now.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
They're just, you go to Brighton, there's freaking wedges you can't walk 5 feet without stumbling over a wedge.
Yeah. We're building the community one jump at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there was everything like that. I mean, the only thing at the end of the year, it was always kind of an unofficial, kind of vibe, a barometer at the trade show. Oh, that movie's really good, or that movie's not as good as we thought. You'd kind of hear rumblings, but it's all kind of subjective too.
I'm curious, the glory days of DVD sales. Snowboarding has changed. Everything's online now. But you were in the pocket in terms of selling units. What did that look like?
Well, we were in the pocket for a very short time because it took us so long. Like I say, we didn't sell shit until really Destroyer. I mean, Revival did well compared to anything else we had done, but it was, one, because it was a better movie. We had built our distribution up a bit more professionally, and we had some okay sponsors, but it still was half of what we did in Destroyer. I think Destroyer was 50,000 copies or so, which was great. I mean, if you could do that now, I mean, if you're an indie band in the 90s and you sold 50,000 CDs, you're doing good. But, the Brainstorm came out was 9/11, which is right when snowboard videos are dropped pretty much. And so all the shops for good reason, we're all nervous of the future. We all were. And so they're like, instead of taking 40 units, we'll take 20. We'll see how things go. And that was for everybody across the board. So, and we were expecting to sell the same as Destroyer, and I think we did 30 something. And then after that, things kind of shifted a little bit. Other companies came out. Industry, I wouldn't say started wane, but the excitement wasn't as there as quite as it was, Like snowboarding had been established then. It's kind of hard to get people like, this is a new shiny toy again, And so it was kind of, it was really fortunate that I got out when I did. It wasn't, I wish I could say I was, like such a prescient about the whole thing, knew I was some kind of seer. But it was like, I'd been doing it for so long, and I did the Jackass, started doing commercials and did some Nike skateboard stuff. And it was like, that was a good time. And then in retrospect, I ran into somebody like Shane or somebody, and they're like, yeah, dude, and YouTube and everything kind of decimated sales or something. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, at least not as quick. So we kind of lucked out, I think. But we probably only had, I say Destroyer was really the only time we did numbers. Like MacDog was doing those kind of numbers, I think, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, where we did it in 2000. But it was fine. Like I say, it was literally, I remember the first time I went to New Zealand, and I went to New Zealand and Switzerland the same year for like Checkle Chocolate, and I couldn't believe that I was going over. I was able to go there. Someone was paying for it. Like Ride paid for me to go to New Zealand, and somebody else paid. I was just so fucking happy. I wasn't thinking about how many videos I'm going to sell. It was just like, I told you, Mom. Like, my dad thought I was an idiot doing what I did.
You know what I love? I was going through all the old videos, watching them, that I fucking think was amazing was like the commercials. Like you really could like feel into what, Alpha or whatever it was, whatever the brand was, you could kind of get a feel for the.
Yeah, I think sometimes you could. That was just an idea because once again, I was this new guy, and I'm like, how the hell do I compete with Standard, MacDog, or Fallliner and these people that got such a foothold and money?
Yep.
And so it was like, maybe if I offer a commercial, I can get, some small company like Stepson to give me $4,000. Like it was literally like that. Like that was the reason. And then, 4-in-1 skate was an inspiration because they had those. And I'm like, well, shit, why not? Skate doing it. That's not bad. And so.
They were rad.
They were awesome.
Yeah, some of them I know got boring, but it was like, that's why we did that Tech 9 one, and then we did a Dukes one. I wanted to do more of that, but it was kind of, the companies, how involved they'd want to be, a lot didn't, And I think some I did that were definitely better than others. But it was another thing where I was like, I want to just try it, as somebody director, and like, just give me an excuse to do it or learn.
They were cool. Like you said, they had a signature to each one.
Yeah, they had a feel, and then you'd also get kind of a random Jeremy Jones banger, even if he wasn't in your video or whatever.
Yeah, that was like a thing because, a lot of these companies that sponsored us, like a Jeremy Jones, like he tried a few times, but he kind of had an obligation, and, he kind of went back and forth with the forum, had this kind of weird, torrid relationship with them. Like he was and then he wasn't and this and that, And so he kind of had a window, and he got some stuff, and then, no, I got to shoot with these guys. And so, but I got some shots. How can I use this? And then he's like on DC or alphanumeric, so I can use that clip or whatever, It was always that kind of stuff.
Let me fire up a quick Patreon question here. This is also, thank you so much to our Patreon members for supporting the show. We couldn't do it without you. This one's from John Martin. Hey, Whitey, how's it going? Scotty Wittlake has always been one of my favorite snowboarders. He spelled it the Canadian way. It was the O-U. And is also a man of mystery. What are some of your favorite moments or stories with him?
God, his favorite stories. Like I say, I first met Scotty in 99 through Brad Kramer, who had, I think Blaze might have met him or something. And so he came in as this sleeper kid who I didn't know, who was very soft-spoken, but his footage, like say, spoke for itself and then some. I think it was just more meeting him that first summer and just how quiet he was about everything, and shy, but yet I always loved his principles. He has such this inborn punk rock aesthetic, like instinct as far as like how he wants to live. And like by like very, anti kind of materialism for the most part, self-reliant, DIY, just doesn't put up with this bullshit. He doesn't need to, And so, like I say, the first time he won that award was kind of neat. But like we did that one sketch with this, because I knew he was so tough, like all of his riding. And so I knew I wanted to use this Sepultura song, the Black Sabbath cover, which I'm NIN, that song we used in his part. And that's why we have him riding that little kid's bike.
Or bicycle.
Because it was like, I want something where it's like, you're acting tough, but it's completely not tough at all. Because it's just kind of him making fun of it himself. And he was like, weren't sure if he'd be down because he didn't know any of us, but he just ended up having so much fun and it was just so silly. And he was, we had Blaze there who he had known. But then the following year, because then, he won Rookie of the Year, so he got more confident. And then Destroyer, we were like, we got to do some kind of like punky because he was already getting into it. And so he was more than happy to shave the mohawk. And that was my old car that he was smashing stuff in, which that car we jumped through the trailer home I bought for $700. Because once again, I had no license. My van I had got stolen outside of Andy Wright's house with all this equipment. And I needed a car, so I bought a 1970 Ford Falcon for $700 and drove that thing back and forth between Utah and Oregon. And we jumped that car through the mobile home, ripped it off, and it popped the radiator. But Scotty's like, "Can I have it?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude." And he fixed it himself, drove that thing back and forth between Oregon and Tahoe multiple times. He would drive it up on the hills, like in the videos. He'd smash shit. It lasted like 2 years. But that's just Scotty, and then, and then he had this great part in Brainstorm, and then...
what about that Ender's double slide? That thing was fucked up.
Yeah, he just kept on, just putting it up. And then, Happy Hour, he had that insane accident. But that's not what slowed him down, and then he kind of took a year off in a way, like just wanted to disappear and snowboard, which I completely respect because he just wanted to ride. He was just like, I just don't want to deal with all this stuff. And then Back in Black, because everybody loved Scotty, and he kind of was on the fence about filming something, but it never really happened. And then I'm just like, dude, everybody's expecting, because I like I say, I didn't shoot anything in Happy Hour, but on Back in Black, I didn't really film it with Shane and Brad and I forgot who
Simon Turcotte.
But I wanted to be a big part of the sketches. And so I was like, well, let's do something with you that's like a build-up, like it's some kind of like Jamie Thomas Zero kind of part, with all this drama and shit, and kids are going to be so fucking hyped. But in reality, you're just at home like eating soup or whatever, because that's really what he's doing. And I thought it was kind of cool as an introduction to what was the young rider? Oh, Chris Tomalski. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a cool like handing the torch in a way too. But
you remember what happened that night?
Oh, shit.
Filming that?
Oh, my God. That's a pretty cool story.
That was messed up.
So we're shooting at this handrail for his fake buildup,
Yep.
And it's right off this off ramp in Portland. But it's in this kind of a little outside of town. And we're shooting on the side of the road. I got some like generators and some lights. And this is still shooting film. And all of a sudden there was like these cars come down the fucking on-ramp and they like ram each other like in movies, and then
right next to us.
Yeah, and then like one guy goes off, and I think they pulled out a gun or something, and then like drove one car like went off the road or something, and then like ran out of the car, and then like somebody came back. It was just like a full like gun battle, like
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
total Grand Theft Auto, but right in front of our faces.
Yeah.
We're all stunned.
Yeah, we're like, it's just
like, what?
It just whips by us, and we're like, what the fuck? It was like, what is going on right now? We got all this snow we're putting on the, this is like July. Yeah. Scotty filled up the back of his pickup truck full of snow. Yeah. But I just love that because it was like, I knew people were going to be so kind of bummed. And I've heard rumors that there's this secret Wittlake part that someone told me recently. I'm like, no, sadly.
That doesn't exist.
Sadly, it doesn't exist.
We're debunking it.
Yeah, we're debunking that. But that's just Scotty, man. And like, as you probably know that, Scotty since then, it's like he's just been exploring the world with his wife in their camper all over, man. He's been all around the globe and back, and it's everything he does, you know, like him donating all of his profits to Food Not Bombs and, you know, whatever, like for that last board of LibTech. Like, I don't know, man. That dude rules.
Genuine guy.
Just such a character. I mean, the idea, I don't know if you remember him biking from Portland to New York City, but he had this average bike, and he biked all the way from Portland to New York City with just like regular clothes on, like not biking pants. He had jeans and like a backpack, slept under ramps and on-ramp, under ramps and so forth, whatever. Got to New York City and started working as a bike messenger until someone finally stole his bike like 2-3 months later and then came home. But like, that right away is like the most punk rock thing in the world.
In the midst of every kid in the world wanting him to like film or be a pro snowboarder, he's like, I'm just gonna go do this.
Yeah, and then also just like literally living on no money.
Yep.
He wore the same clothes for like months. Like there's no fake. He wasn't. Now people would do that, but they would film every moment and be posting it daily.
Good point.
Truly.
Like he never ever even commented on it. People are like, I heard Wittlake was there 3 weeks ago. Like he never touted his own shit. That's what's so great in this world where everyone's like, you got to know everything I'm doing all the time. I wouldn't do anything unless I'm filming it, you know, kind of thing.
So true.
Yeah.
And so that's
the
why
most
it's
sincere.
like, yeah, clearly he's doing it for himself, for no one else.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love it. Another one, I know you said you didn't work on it except for the skits, but I always feel like that Jeff Anderson Back in Black part was something special.
Yeah, I gotta give a lot of that tips of, you know, Shane filming so much, but also Brad being really a big part of like wanting that thing to be right, you know, and getting the opening and, you know, incorporating a lot of the imagery and had through that thing. Like we worked with a friend who did After Effects, and, you know, Brad really wanted this one song we couldn't get, and the song we got, Granddaddy song, we actually did pay for that one because he really wanted that thing, and I think it worked out great. And, you know, I mean, these two guys, Shane and Brad being the two, it just, I mean, it's so special because it's like, it's so him, you know, and it's like, it's just so tragic that, you know, that happened during the thing and that it was called Back in Black was just super surreal. I mean, I'm really, you know, so grateful that we were actually able to get that, you know, to have that moment in time that's always going to be around, but super tragic. I mean, geez.
Yeah, that's, it's like, as you were saying, the group of everyone traveling together and doing everything is so much more than snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I feel like that moment with Jeff was like kind of a shattering of our childhood.
Yeah.
You know, this is just going to be all good forever.
And it's so rad because like in the video, like we weren't trying to hype it up, but how there's so many moments with Shane and Jeff, you know, where it's like, you know, Shane putting the hand over the lens so he knows where the good trick is, but you could hear the energy and the stoke. And then Jeff like coming up and the hug, like, oh, that's so genuine because obviously no one knew what was in store. You know, it's not like it was this manipulated thing. Like we tried to get this feeling there. It was all there. So it's like it really shows how the relationship between these guys had, you know, and that's what made it so special, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic. So, you know, we've talked a lot about your snowboard filming career, but you've done a lot outside of snowboarding, and you've also had a very gracious exit. What was the catalyst to just jumping out of the game?
I mean, I had, you know, like I say, I was so lucky to have done what I did, and I was exactly what, not 100% I intended when I was 20, but as soon as I was like, I want to do this, I would never have guessed it would have worked. You know, it wasn't an intention, much less at the level it did. But, you know, at that time, I trying to do these ads, we're doing sketches. We always wanted to do that kind of stuff. You know, working at Blunt, and I was shooting some Big Brother stuff, some of this stuff for the number 2 video called Number 2. And, you know, when Jackass came around, I shot some stuff, and then Jeff asked if I wanted to shoot the movie and help write some sketches. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then handed Brad the reins, you know, because we just came off a pretty good movie, and, you know, Shane's in there. And so that obviously had a big effect, and it was fun, and it was something different. It did really, obviously, really well. And then after that, I got some opportunities to do some Nike. I did like one of the first round of Nike skate ads. I directed a bunch of them. And then it was just like, oh, this is rad. And I think at that point, it was like, I either need to jump out now or I'll never really get a chance. just because it's so hard to get into a new industry, say in your mid 30s. I was like early, you know? And it was just like, you know, like I say, I was lucky because of the timing of the industry. And Brad even was like, because that's what Brad was doing. And I told Brad, I was like, I'll do another movie if you want to do another movie, you know, but I'll just produce it because it's your job. And then he ended up getting a gig, I think, for MacDog. And he asked me, and he was like all shy about it. And he was just like, hey, man, is it cool? And I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like, honestly, that's cool. And he was so relieved, but I was kind of surprised he even thought I was would have been bummed. But so it was great. And so, yeah, so after that, I just started working in the skating. And then I did my first real commercial, and it happened to do really well. I got picked in these ad circuits, and I got rep by somebody else, and did a Tony Hawk thing for Activision. And then
what exactly was that? The EA's
well, the very first commercial I did that blew up was just EA Sports indoors. It was like these guys having an impromptu game of football in the house, and they ended up destroying the whole inside of the house. And it's like, football's more fun indoors. It was like for an EA Sports football game, and that got all this press. And then I did a Tony Hawk underground, where he does his giant ollie and stuff and skates all around the city and stuff. And so those did well. And then from there, I just started getting more commercial work, and then I did the second Jackass movie, but the commercial work kind of took off. And then music videos I was doing around that same time, But it's kind of fun because like a lot of the success I've had has been like really kind of like adrenaline, just fucking go for it kind of stuff. Like stuff by the seat of the pants, off the rails kind of material, which 100% was from the snowboarding days. Like without a doubt. Like when I got into it, I started getting a lot of success just because agency people are very kind of rigid. Even though they're very creative, they think on this very much, this is a methodical way you do it. It's professional. Where, like with Destroyer, like we're just going to jump this car off this giant fucking hill. And I remember actually having a pitch at Whitey and Kennedy, which is like the biggest agency that did all the Nike stuff, famous. And they were like, they saw that clip and they're like, how did you permit that? And I was like, you can't permit awesome. And they were just like, so like blown, like that's rad, but that's really dangerous. But, it was just kind of shit we would just do. And that energy kind of lend itself to a lot of the stuff I had success in because you just had this kind of breakneck kind of fun off the rails thing, which of course is Jackass-ish too because skateboarding world. But I absolutely would have been completely not as successful if I hadn't had that, that whatever, that's my foundation. Because, the world we came in was just like having fun, going out there. You don't, think first. You don't think first. You just do first, think about it later.
I have a question. How many vehicles have you jumped for the movies?
That's a great question, Shane.
Yeah, not enough. I mean,
never enough.
Never enough.
Like that little thing we did with, with the Rev guys was so fun, but it was obviously small. And then when we did the
Crawford's car.
Yeah, with
that
Crawford.
Was big time.
Well, Crawford
Amazing.
started getting into cars, and then
Did you double up the padding in between Crawford?
I wish
on that one.
There's a human in there for that for sure.
But that was so fun because it was he had bought this car, and it's actually a shitty car. Like it looked nice, but it was an automatic. It had no guts. It wouldn't even peel out. And he had this place we found by Bend, and we just backed it up back and forth on this launch ramp we had built sort of, and with straps on the steering wheels down to the braces so it would keep the steering wheel. And we would just drive it back and forth without touching the steering wheel over and over until it always went the same way. And then we had this thing I rigged up that went over the gas, kept it down, but then with a stick, we'd power brake it. So it would be floored, but the brake would hold it because it was such a bullshit motor. And there was that moment where it's like, we got 4 cameras and we're going to let go of this stick. And it's like, me, Brad, my friend Shane, I'm Greg Schmidt, myself, and I don't know who else was shooting, but it was like, and we had a dummy in there, obviously, and like yank it, and it was just like, I was shooting camera, and we were all just like, like so scared, and you could see in the video, in the credits, when it lands, it's just like, you see everyone just like hands in the air, because all of us were so nervous but excited, and the fact that it worked. You can see in the credits too with Crawford just jumping around, pumping his fists. So excited. That was like one of the funnest things because it's like such a relief. And it was so fun. And to see it, like that car flew. And the funniest thing is it was flattened. And Jake Price, he had Jake Price at the time was like 16 or 17. And his dad had one of those old Hummers, like the old almost military ones. And we dragged it out of the place because all the tires were flat, bent. And we dragged it out onto the side of the road on the shoulder of the main road and then called AAA. Yeah, we were in this car accident.
I wonder what they thought when they pulled out.
A flatbed. We were like, they're like, you're in a tow truck, and they're like, we're going to need a flatbed.
Yeah. They would definitely do one of those.
Yeah, they totally did. No, because there was nothing around.
Yeah,
and the car looked like it was a hit, like run over by a steamroller.
That's amazing.
And the dude seriously was scratching his head, but he couldn't say anything because it was just like the AAA that had no stipulation.
Yep.
So he had to drag it up with the chains, on the winch.
Yeah.
And it was free. So there was no charge of getting that thing dumped. And Andrew already owned the car. He bought it for like $3,000. And he wrote it off probably for, as a write-off.
It's a great purchase.
So it was like, it didn't cost us anything. And that was the same thing. When I jumped the car through the trailer home, it was like, that was the car I had. I bought for $700 a year before, and the trailer I got for $500. Like, it was just so fun to try to do all that stuff, and so when I started doing movies or big commercials, I'm like, oh, we could just do this. And they're like, oh, no, that's going to cost all the, I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. No spot and bend.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love it, dude. I feel like as I'm listening, I'm like, God, Whitey kind of has like the secret to life figured out. So hard-hitting question, Whitey, what's the secret to life? Because I'm trying to learn a little bit here.
Man, the secret to life is that you're going to have a lot of fucking mistakes. And I would love to think, or I wish in a million years that I had made a lot of good decisions, but I have made so many terrible decisions in my life. I've made a lot of great ones too, but man, so many bad decisions. But at least the only good side of that is you learn so much more from bad decisions than you will ever make from a good decision. Because you don't remember good decisions, but you remember the bad ones, and so you'll never repeat them again. And I just think the only thing you got to do is just kind of hopefully enjoy the time you have and not worry too much about making bad decisions, because you won't get to enjoy the good stuff, and then just go, well, if I do something shitty, I'll learn and keep moving forward. Because I don't know, I definitely catch myself being like, fuck, if I only did this or that, but it's like you could say that about anything on the negative side of things too. Like if I didn't do that, I might not be here too, Could have been a bad decision, but it ended up not being a bad decision, So yeah, that's about the only thing I can give. I wish I had better advice, but I'm not ruling it by any means.
Well, I also hear so much, and just there's this like thought process that can take over all of us, where you're like, I fucking need to do good at my job or film a good video part, take it serious. And it's like you can be successful at your craft while having a damn good time too.
Yeah, and I'd say you're going to be a lot more successful doing it, and if you're in a kind of work where you can have a good time while being successful, you're in the wrong line of work, like that would suck if it's only about doing well at work. And
yeah, and just like snowboarding taught us, if you're not falling, you're not trying.
Yeah, I think even like certain business people, some of them actually have a lot of fun doing that, and a lot of them don't. And their fun is like showing off all their fancy shit they have. But I'm sure there's some of them that enjoy doing it, and they probably do well.
Yeah.
And their life is just better, But yeah, I think that's the key. Is just like there's no reason why you should think enjoying this means I'm not doing a good job. You clearly enjoy doing what you do, and you clearly do a good job at it. And you probably wouldn't do a good job if you didn't enjoy it.
Absolutely. Dude, this is a freaking dream come true. Dude, I didn't say it, but all the listeners know I talk about Destroyer all the time. I might be a freaking selling drugs in Massachusetts if I hadn't discovered that son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, or something. Who knows? But changed my life, so appreciate it.
Yeah, it changed, I think that's what's great about snowboarding is like, I can't think of too many people that snowboarding has been negative in their life.
Good point.
Like, oh man, if I only just didn't get into snowboarding. You know, I don't think there's too much of that going on compared to other things, you know? Like that's not in the bad decision list.
I mean, you know when people will go through a tough time in the industry of snowboarding and then disappear for a bit, it's always great to see them come back. Like you were saying, you're back to skating around.
Yeah, but that's not because I stopped skating because I didn't think it was good. It was just because I got busy and lazy. And
right.
it was, you know.
But then you still came back to it and it feels great,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I still skate everything. I mean, skateboarding is one of those things that I think a lot of my friends, at least of my age, like once again, was the entrance into snowboarding. You know, like I never would have snowboarded if I didn't skate. It was like, you know, we got snowing out and it was like, this is like skating. And like when you started snowboarding, you're like, I feel like I'm skating, but I'm better than I am on a skateboard.
This is easier.
Yeah, I can actually like go pretty far like on this and still grab my tail. You know, I could never ollie this far. Like that was always it. So I've always loved skating. It's just like, you know, it's sometimes it's hard to do. And then I started going again and it's like, God, man, it feels good just to skate for 45 minutes. And even if you're just doing some, you know, grinds and some axle stalls and cruising around at speeds, it's like, it's like snowboarding was. I mean, snowboarding obviously is a lot more difficult just to hop on. I live 3 minutes from a skate park. It's very easy. That's one tough thing about snowboarding, you know, is it's not out the door. It snows out the door, but you need a hill.
A couple more hurdles.
Yeah. So, you know, that's...
Well, you know, they say the ride down is free.
It's true.
You just got to get up there.
You know what they also say? The motion is the lotion, Shane. You just got to keep moving.
Yeah.
And then you don't...
And if you don't use it, you lose it.
That's also true. I can actually say that for certain. Red Fang, and then I watched the Great Salt Lake Band of Horses music videos. Freaking A, brother.
And those are mellow ones.
Yeah, what other ones?
Those are early ones.
Yeah, those are the early ones. What else we got?
I don't know. I mean, the Red Fang, you know, it's kind of funny, not trying to toot my horn, but you were just mentioning about bringing up certain riders. I've had some really lucky spirits with bands. Same thing where I was like, I know these guys and I think they're awesome and let's try to do something. Like this band Red Fang, they were in this earlier band called Party Time, which actually played like a Transworld party, like around 2000. We got Coyle's good friends with them, Chris Coyle. And I started having some success in commercials and stuff. And they've always been buddies, and they started this band. They hadn't had a label yet, but they had this one song that was just ripper. I'm like, man, I'm going to come up with some idea we can do for cheap. And I came up with this idea where they take on these LARPers and build, they were big drinkers at the time, and build suits of armor out of beer cans and take them on and get cut down. And it blew up. It got them a label. It got them a management company, a booking agent, and they've become a big band. And I've done a lot of videos for them since. But it was like, it's that same great feeling like with Wittlake, you know, like winning Rookie of the Year. It's like, it works. And these are great people. Like that band are friends of mine. Like if, you know, been to their weddings, you know, like multiple ones. And it's still like doing that kind of stuff. You know, I did a thing with Superchunk, one of my favorite bands. They were in my very first video. I asked them, like, as a kid, faxing them from like mailboxes, etc. in Vail, can I use your song? Like, I didn't even know if you had to do that. I mean, it was before I really stole shit. And they said yes. And I ended up getting to do a video for them. Well, actually, they didn't even ask for a video, but I had this ridiculous idea about a cat cats at night like to party and rage because you hear them at night. And it was the whole idea about this, they put a little GoPro on this cat's collar and then you see what the cat does at night. In my video, he parties, he does drugs, he hangs out with hookers, he steals cars, he does everything.
Typical cat, yeah.
He rages. And that I did it complete for free. I probably spent $1,500 and it blew up. It got like Village Voice said we won the internet. We were on Rolling Stone magazine's hot list. We were Paste magazine video of the year. We beat out even like Will Ferrell's video with Beastie Boys. Like did it for $1,500. And the band's like, we got to pay you back. Like, how much did you spend? Because it was like, this has like been our most successful video and they've been a band for 26 years or whatever. But it was, once again, it was out of love. I love that band. They changed my life. Like, it's just listening to them makes me so happy still to this day. And it's like, I want to do something for those guys. I don't care. just going to do something. And it ended up being great. And I've done it since then. I've done more videos for them, and they own Merge Records, and I've done a bunch of videos for Merge. And I don't know, that kind of stuff. It's always been fun. Like I got to do a Mudhoney video, which I would Mudhoney posters on my wall when I was in college, you know, like, and then now I know them and they're friends. And it's like, I get so happy, you know, like the same with like Tony Hawk, you know, like I had this seminal moment where I'm the only one that shot a sequence of Tony Hawk's 900. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Didn't have a note of that.
Yeah, it's in the Smithsonian. Like
Damn, in the Smithsonian, brother.
Official.
It was like, that was like a big thing in that, like, you know, it was 1999, it was summer. Like Jeff Jewett, who worked for Smith, was like, hey, I got passes for the X Games in San Francisco. You want to come? Like, 'cause it was in between summer riding and winter. Went up there and then was at the contest. And I was sitting with the skaters because I knew a lot of the skaters like Colin McKay and Moses and Sluggo was there and some older people, you know, because the vert dudes were a little older. I mean, I'm still in the 20s, but still. So I'm at this little, right on the side of the ramp, and I had my camera and then started shooting some snaps, but I was actually shooting Colin. It was like best trick. And then Tony started doing his thing, but everyone kind of wrote off the 900 at first because he looked like he wasn't really trying it, like committing. Like, oh, you know, spinning a lot and bailing. And then all of a sudden he kind of put one sort of down because I'm shooting film. So I can't keep on shooting film. I don't have that much in my bag. I have like 8 rolls. And then all of a sudden I was like really close. I'm like, I should try and shoot this. And then boom, he did it. And I shot it. You know, it's film, I don't know. And then that night I'm at like some party, some, you know, industry party. And they're like, that was pretty, everyone's talking about it. Like that whole night was a buzz at X Games, you know? And I'm at some party and they're like, you get that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, wow. No one, because there's tons of people there. You're not even thinking about it. And then I come home to Portland and I start getting calls hey, I heard you shot the 900. And I hadn't even processed it yet, like the film. And then I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah. And then he's like, that's cool. That's rad. And then I find out 2 days later, like, yeah, so-and-so didn't get it, or that didn't work, or this or that. And then someone's like, I think you might be the only one that has this. And I'm like, what?
Amazing.
And now I'm all nervous to drop off the film. So I dropped off some other rolls that he didn't land to see if the exposure was right, to see if I needed to push or pull the film. And it was fine. And then I did it and they were all perfect. And then it became this giant thing. And all of a sudden, Grant Britton, who I've never met but worshipped as a child and obviously the greatest skateboarding photographer of all time, calls me up. And, you know, this is 99, so I'm still pretty young. And he's like, hey, we heard you have this. We're willing to stop the presses at Transworld if we can run this sequence. And I was just like, yeah. You know, and remember, I'm good friends with the Big Brother guys at this time, and Big Brother's going on. I send it to Transworld, and then I find out, over the weekend, I get a call from Jeff from Big Brother. Train was like, dude, what the fuck? I heard you gave that sequence to Transworld? I thought we were friends. And all this stuff, and this fully guilted me. And I felt so bad. I was like, God damn it, you're right. You know, like, because I got so wooed by Grant calling me, because it's Grant Britton. And anyway, I asked Sapnewski, who was the editor of Transworld at the time, Snow. I was like, hey, can you get my slides scans back? And he just, because they were scanned him anyway, give me my slides back. I get him, and then I get a call from Transworld next week that's saying that I needed the slides back, that there was something wrong, like they were corrupted, like the scans. And then so Big Brother ends up running it, and then it becomes a huge thing. And then Grant asked me about getting fired. He kind of proposes that this is bullshit. Like he worked, because I was working for Transworld at the time, but for Snow, but just, you know, staff, or like I'm more of a per diem, or not per diem, retainer.
Retainer, yeah.
And it was a big thing, and it was just like, oh, blah, blah. And then Big Brother runs it, like on the cover, as kind of in the face. And then it became this big thing, and I had this quote about Grant, and then Big Brother ran it as a quote, which is never good. But then I found out from somebody else that, and I hope this isn't wrong if this goes on the air or not, but somebody from Transworld or another well-known skate photographer called me up and said that they tried to shoot that weekend. When I sent him a photo, Grant went to shoot the 900 with Tony, but Tony couldn't land it that weekend. So maybe he was trying to get a scoop on me, Grant, like maybe run my sequence, but have a nicer version of it. That's, you know, because I was shooting long lens. It's an okay sequence, but it's not where you'd want to be to get a great sequence, you know, by no means. And because the guy was like, dude, don't, because he knew all the crazy infighting going on. And yeah, it became this thing, and I obviously didn't get fired, but it was this bad blood for a while. It became like a big thing with Transworld and Big Brother. It was just like another one of those guys, because I never really had it, but yeah, Big Brother and Transworld had, think fighting forever. But that was like one of those moments. It's kind of like I lucked out having this great thing, and then I ended up getting to do a Tony Hawk commercial, and then I also work with him on some other things, and I'm actually working with Tony on something right now, and like it's just like I can't believe I know Tony Hawk now, like on any level. Like my 16-year-old self is like beside myself, even though Tony's only like a year or so older than me. He feels like a king, It's like just meeting some of these bands and stuff, It's so cool when you get to meet your idols or you look up to and they're actually just great people. And you're like, God, it's fucking awesome,
No doubt.
And then like, I lucked out getting that Tony, and I also lucked out getting the Ingmar shot, which was another.
Yeah, there's a story behind that too, right?
Well, the Ingmar thing was, for me, was, we were there in Sweden, great crew, J2 with me, Ian Reuter and Nathan Yant, I believe. And I was filming it. I already knew Ingmar from a couple years earlier. We had done, Substance, but he hadn't really done too much. And there was always people, doing pretty rad tricks on that quarter pipe. And then I had my camera, my 16 on a tripod, and then he even said something as he was hiking up, because he hiked up like 40 feet higher than anybody else was dropping, and he had to like ride over rocks, And so I was like, snapped my film camera, shot a sequence, turned the camera off, so I double dipped again. But I think the thing was that Ross missed it, and he was like right next to me, kind of literally just maybe 10 feet to my right, with his 16 on a tripod. And it was just like everybody, there's like probably 150 people there, maybe at best. But everyone's like, what? Screaming. And I'm like, fuck. And I look over at him. I'm like, no, how was that? And he just had this total blank, bad look on his face where everybody else was just elated. And I was just like, what's up, dude? Like, what? 'Cause something was clearly wrong. You could just tell. And he's like, I didn't get it. And I'm just like, what? And he's like, I didn't get it. And I was just like, right in my head, I'm like, oh my God. And I got to say, a little bit of me was like kind of, it was Mac Dog.
He filmed for Mac Dog, yeah.
But I was like, dude, it's not a big deal. Like trying to make it feel better right away. I'm like, dude, a lot of people have it. Like, it's not going to be that, there's so many people filming this because there's tons of people, And so I was trying to make it feel a little better right then and there, because it's like, you could see how this bad he felt. And there's, not much you could do. So I was just like, come on, man. Like, there's so many cameras. Like, it's not that special, But man, that was sad. I definitely felt for him. I've been there, but never anything for so significant. But it could have easily happened to me, but it just luckily didn't. I've been lucky on those, like the Tony occasion and that occasion. I was very lucky to make my camera work. Like I did a famous thing with Kobe Bryant. You ever see him jumping over Austin Martin? You ever see that? I directed that, and that thing became a big viral hit. And it might have not have been, it was like they wanted to do. We were shooting two things with Kobe that day at this place in downtown LA, and they really wanted to do this other bit where he snatches a $100 bill off the top of a backboard, and that's what the agency wanted. And they had this other idea, which I wanted to do, of him jumping over this car and look like he's filming himself, but we were going to shoot on the roof of the place. And they didn't really care because this was the priority. And then there was an issue with the backboard. And I remember going, well, how long is it going to take to fix that, to the art department? And they're like, 45 minutes to an hour, 45 minutes. And I was like, can we go upstairs and do that right now? Like, it was a really short window. Like, we normally would take a net 2 hours away. And I was just like, and they're like, oh. And we did. We went up and we shot that whole thing in like 20 minutes. Went back down.
He really jumped over the car?
No. But I did the whole bit, like worked out his timing and what he was going to say, and just kind of like, how he should say it, just being himself, really just leaning in on Kobe. Yeah. He had great charisma. He was one of those guys. Didn't have to do much, just like this is what I need you to do, camera. You go out there and I'm going to count down and you're going to act like you jump and then this happens, but him being him. But we did it. We go down, and just the one guy from Nike who was Kobe's, I think, manager at the time or liaison or whatever, like his big connection to Kobe and Nike. He was the only guy that was like, that's going going to be good. Like he looked at me and like was like, boom, like handshake. And because I was like, I can't believe we got to do that. Like I didn't think they were going to let us because Knoxville had gotten in trouble for being like, I'm Johnny Knoxville and I got hit by a car. And he did that on Jackass. And he got somebody like emulated him and got hurt and it was like a bunch of shit. So I was like, I can't believe Nike's going to let him jump over a car. And then we shot that other bit. It was okay. But the car thing blew up. But that was another one of those lucky where I just took an opportunity and jumped on it and I lucked out. Because it could have just been like a maybe ho-hum for sure. Mm-hmm. But that thing really launched my career at that time. It's like all of a sudden, oh, you know how to do viral videos. No, I don't. I got lucky.
Yeah. Bit of a ready, fire, aim situation.
Well, I mean, it's kind of that thing, you know? I always thought it would be a fun T-shirt for a film festival that says "Shoot first, answer questions later," and then have like on a panel.
So true. Yeah.
All right, so you've spent a lot of time in the snowboard game making snowboard videos. Of all the years, what do you think the heyday was for you?
I'd say like the mid '90s was the thing that made it so special because snowboarding was so new, but it was quickly growing. And so there was all these companies, a lot of them skate related, trying to get in on the game. Like they thought it was going to be a money-making thing. But no one really knew the direction snowboarding was. Like, is it a skating thing? Is it a surfing thing? Is it action sports? What's the right marketing? What's the image we have? And so there was tons of kooky companies, but more than anything, there was just tons of companies, which made it really fun. And the best thing from that was so many people could get sponsored. And a lot of people got sponsored that shouldn't have gotten sponsored. But it was great because everybody was sort of on a level playing field, like as far as money goes. No one was making much money unless you were on Burton. Burton was the only company that had been well established and had run the business well. And, people like Terje and, Craig Kelly and Brushy and some people were making money. But for the most part, really wasn't any pros making good money then. And so it was almost like a snowboarding socialism where everybody was equal. And so it just made it so fun. So there was not that much animosity, like, screw that guy, I should be making what he's making, or like, he doesn't deserve this. And you had that kind of like, whatever, jockeying for position that you do now. And developed later. Because, there was so many companies. And the other cool thing about those companies is they all were trying different things in their advertising, like, especially with Blunt, but you see it in Transworld, because they didn't know, like, we're going to try and be the punky company or the metal one or do this weird ad or this kind of, Capel, like we're going to go fashion. Like people were just trying shit. And so it just was so fresh where once things started getting really well marketed and situated where money becomes a thing, then it's like people don't want to take as many risks because there is a risk.
Good point.
And so it's like, maybe instead of doing this weird ad, we're going to just do a really nice riding shot with some slick graphics, And you started seeing that happening more and more, especially when like KT started buying a lot of other companies and all that stuff. You just saw less edgy stuff, which inevitably makes the sport less interesting. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you're being conservative to save your company, but by doing conservative, it makes the sport less popular and you're hurting your own company. But those 90s, like I say, it was just like people were trying different boards and bindings. And I don't know, it just felt so fun because no one was really bitching because everybody was young. There was no old pro snowboarders in 1995. Craig Kelly was like the oldest one and he probably was 29, And so everybody was like, I'm making 45 grand and I live with 3 friends and you're 23 years old. You're pumped, because they're getting 800 from this company and 300 from that company and 150 from this little company and, we had so many people that sponsored Kingpin, which is obviously the lower grade film company, that were trying to get a foothold. We can sponsor Whitey's movie for $2,000. But half the time, man, a lot of times those companies would be out of business before our movie would be out. And I'd still put them on the box. Yeah. Ass Industries, remember them?
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Stepson, Solid. There's a lot of companies that sponsored my films that are gone, that were rad for a moment. And they could have been somebody else, but they took the risk and didn't do it right. One of the big things about snowboarding back in the day, though, it's a reason why a lot of those companies, which I learned, that didn't survive is not that they weren't good, it's that they didn't understand business and they didn't take that serious. You know, like we got this great product, great marketing, and they just like they totally slept on the marketing. I mean, on the business side of things. And it's a big reason why Ken and Damon, I think, did so well. They had this guy, Clay, if you may know. He was his older accountant. At the time, he seemed really old because we were so young. I was like, who's the old guy in that corner guy in that office? And it was like their accountant. This is like 95 or 94 when he was in drawers. But he was good, and he kept Ken and those guys right on track. Like, Ken, this is costing this, you know. And it worked because Ken had that marketing ideas, but without that, they probably wouldn't have done it, you know. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't have worked without either. But so many of those snowboarding companies in the 90s, they didn't think it. They're just like, we got great marketing. And then they've realized, like, oh, we're spending more money on the snowboard than we're selling them for because we didn't check the inventory correctly or something, you know. But yeah, the 90s were, it was just such a mellow, fun time, you know, because like I say, there was no precedent. There was no X Games. It wasn't like, you're going to be the next this because who's the next this? You know, I mean, the big stars then was like Rashid Terje and Jamie Lynn, but still it was like the beginnings.
I think also too what you mentioned about young people at companies is like so crucial. Like kids that aren't afraid to make big decisions and go for stuff, and they fucking hate this and they love that, and they're firm on their ideals and are not so safe. You know, always make a lasting impact.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit, you know, with snowboarding, because now it's been around for a long time. Not long, but in relative to us, you know, when we started, you know, so now the people that are starting companies have used to snowboard, and they're in their 40s or at least 30s, and they're smarter, but they're probably also a little less prone to do risks because they're smarter. And, you know, everyone knows youth. It's like when you're young, you're more willing to try some crazy snowboard trick that you wouldn't do because you don't think about the repercussions, but it goes with business too. And so you're some 24-year-old and you're like, let's try this. And anybody else will be like, that sounds crazy. But if that works, then all of a sudden they become the next thing. And it's like, I wonder, and I don't know this because I'm not involved in snowboarding at all, really, as far as industry-wise, if there's many companies that are that young like it was. I mean, all those companies were like solid in those, they're all like 20s when they started those companies, you know? I mean, a lot of them didn't work, but a lot did. I mean, Ken was in his 20s when he started, early 20s when he started like, you know, 8-ball and then drawers and stuff. They were really young, you know, linked with all that, all those other companies, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into hot takes here, Whitey. We're going to start off with who is your GOAT, your greatest of all time, male and female snowboarder?
I know you actually asked me this before this, and even still I don't have an answer. It's so hard because when I think of greatest of all time, I think of somebody has done something for so long, you know, like Muhammad Ali, boxing, or, you know, skateboarding, I would be like Gons or like Tony Hawk, you know, who's done so much for the sport for so long. And in skateboarding, I mean, snowboarding, there's not as many like that, you know, because that stuck around, you know, that is still doing this. I mean, and then it's like, is it based on how long you've been around or what you did to the sport, you know? Jamie Lynn is always going to come up there, absolutely in the top 3. I think just one, because his style at that time, like I wouldn't say revolution, but definitely was like a big imprint on the style of like, this is what you should be doing. This is a good person to look, lodestar to look to for doing tricks. And I kind of love that he's had his ups and downs and had all these things that he's had to go through, and he has made it through there and pushed through, and he's still snowboarding. We had a big trip up Baldface, or not Baldface, what's the other one right by there?
Valhalla.
Valhalla, thank you. Valhalla with an old school crew, you know, it was like all these guys. And Jamie went out with us, and dude, he did a couple lines unchecked that were fucking epic. And we're just like, oh shit, Jamie, you know, like all these dudes that knew him or of him, seeing him still like rip it was like, yeah, man, that guy still got it, dude. And he rides, as you probably know, so many days a year still. So he's got to be up there, you know. And beyond that, I don't know. I mean, LeBlanc, it's like, it's so weird to say something like that to someone you know so close. It almost doesn't feel right. Like Jamie, I know him and we're very friendly and I really like the guy, but I don't know him well. So it makes it more feel like he's this thing, you know? And like LeBlanc in a way, because he has, Mike has been doing it for so long, as you know, and still crushing it. He still rides pretty significantly for
Still
being in his 50s.
That huge bit, yeah.
Mikey's passion is on fire.
Yeah. And it's
more than ever.
So it's like, I don't know. It just seems so weird because it doesn't, I don't know. But yeah, I'd say him, and like Craig Kelly was I'm calling him greatest of all time because he was more of like a forefather, And so it's like, I don't know. So I don't really have one. I'd say Jamie, let's just go with Jamie Lynn because that's all I can come up with.
And we always ask female as well.
Whew, top female snowboarder of all time. That's a tough one. Because there's, in snowboarding, with the girls, it's like there was rippers in the 90s for sure, but they weren't pushing themselves like they have been starting in the 2000s, it feels like. I missed when they really started going. And now it's like you look at street skating, as soon as you see, you have somebody you feel similar to yourself and you see them do it, then you can visualize something and it can happen. I mean, we see that in skateboarding because it's so instantaneous how someone can do something that seemed impossible just 6 months earlier. And now that girls are seeing other girls rip, so many girls are ripping. And it's going to continue. I mean, it's crazy. It's amazing. The skateboarding progression with women in the last 4 years. It's incredible. It's like making the men look slack. In the snowboarding women, I feel like that did happen like maybe 10 years ago, but because there was like more good girl snowboarders in the 90s than there was good girl skaters. Like there was a handful, but not as many snowboarders. But greatest of all time, geez, I don't know, man. I can't. I don't even have an answer. They're all great.
Okay, who's the most underrated snowboarder in your opinion?
This is another question I don't know if I have a good answer for. I feel like if I knew it was underrated, he or she would have been in my movie, and then you'd know of them. I like someone that I always wish I got to see more stuff of was like Rowan Rogers. When he did his first stuff, I just felt like he was on such a different level of progression at a time where, people were just doing like happy to do backside threes or frontside threes. And he was doing like switchback sevens and stuff and with good style and could do rails and things. And, and seemingly coming out of nowhere from this little Midwest town, but then just kind of like thoned it in a little bit the next following years and then just disappeared. And now he actually snowboards a lot, for himself. So I don't know if he's underrated or just, I don't know. I wish you would have got to see more of him, but I totally respect all of his decisions, but it's just more about me being greedy. I wanted to see more what he could have done. It would have been rad.
Yeah.
Because, if he would have progressed a bunch from there and continued for like 3-4 years after that, I think it would have been so huge by 96. Like, it would have been crazy. And Nate also had great steves back then, too.
Steel or powder?
Powder, easy.
Favorite style ever?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie Lynn still chalking it up there. Like, as far as that, yeah, I'd probably say him just to make it easy.
Favorite method?
I don't know who's done my favorite method. I mean, Jamie Lynn's right up there, but Gucci does incredibly good methods. I don't know. My big thing is like I like it more like Crooked Cop kind of melon. Like I don't like people grabbing the tip and bending their whole arch in their back. It feels too Euro to me, like the old Euro style. I don't like the whole stretching your whole body out.
What's your favorite snowboard video ever made?
Like saying one of my own just sounds so shitty, but I don't know. I'd say Substance is my favorite little probably Kingpin film, just because what it meant to me and how young I was and how easy it seemed to happen. We shot it in like 2.5 months, and it was didn't do that well, but it was still, and the people that liked it was like, whoa, where did this come from? And I mean, I could still look at it. There's some stuff in there that's good. We had so much snow that year. It was one of those years where Utah was getting just blown like 2 feet every 4 days, it seemed like.
So sick.
You couldn't go anywhere. Like, we weren't chasing the storm. It was just everywhere we were going. We would show up and to be 2 feet somewhere. So.
Okay, next question. Favorite snowboard graphic ever made?
I don't know. I think probably one of the most identifiable would be like the brushy fish. You know, it's just so instantly see it and it stands out and it's not kooky. It's kind of cool.
If you could go heliboarding with 3 people, just good times, who you taking with you?
J2, probably LeBlanc and maybe Ninja.
Woo!
Just old dudes I've known.
Okay, dream sponsor doesn't have to be snowboard related.
I don't know, Whole Foods.
There you go.
Just get free expensive food for life.
Great.
That could work.
All right, last question. Worst trend?
I don't know. Rollerblading would be up there. Backflips on snowboards.
Backflips?
Backflips. Never. It's a ski trick.
I love that answer. Fantastic.
There
Well, that's
you
it.
go.
That was hot takes, and that was a hot take.
Yeah.
All right, Whitey. What's next? What's next for you?
For me?
Yes.
What's next for me? I'm hopefully doing I got a feature film that very close to being done, that the details have to be secretive. So we're working on financing right now that is very close, but it's been in the makings for a long time. It's a project I was working on with Mike Burnett. But who knows? Everything, it seems close and it's not. And I'm finishing up a documentary, kind of movie mockumentary for Portugal the Man.
Cool.
So,
is the thing with Burnett skate related?
Yes.
That's great.
Sort
news. Kind of. Okay. I like it. Okay. Well, lastly, I guess you want to throw any thank yous before we put a bow on this friggin' great chat that we've had. Sometimes we ask the guests if they want to throw any thank yous.
Man, I mean, I'd say thank you, obviously, to you and to Bombhole and to Shane for being my friend and helped me out and let me stay at his house and filming for me all those years. And everybody that's ever shot for Kingpin, Brad Kramer especially, who's always been down. And then just all the riders, man. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think, you know, we had our crew, but every year, you know, there's always going to be new guys. And think about how many movies, how many years. I mean, we're talking hundreds of good people, you know, and, you know, they've all changed my life, and you know, they've all like made you better, and just all those experiences and stuff, like they're priceless. I mean, that's why it's like those early movies didn't care about making money. It's like, come on, dude, like who's getting to do what we were doing? Like just traveling with friends and fucking around in the snow and like getting in trouble and going to country. So it was like, I'd pay people if I could get to do that again, you know? So, yeah, I'm just thankful for all those people that ever made it. And any company, obviously, that's ever sponsored, you know, Ken Block, I wish, you know, God, I wish he was still around. And, you know, and J2, all these great people were missed. It's so sad about how many people I've known in snowboard movies that are gone just in tragic ways. And I just hope the rest can stick around for a long time.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for your contribution to snowboarding. Thanks for coming on the show and chatting. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Shane?
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having me back on. And Whitey, thank you always for everything.
Yeah, man.
Like I told you, from that one quote, it changed everything. You know?
Which one
Help
was that?
other people out instead of just talking about yourself. You know?
Whew. Also, Shane, it's always sunny above the clouds.
It truly is.
That's a fact.
Every time.
And I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors, all of our Patreon members, everybody that tunes in. We really appreciate you. And you know what, Shane? I was thinking, why don't you you do the sign off for us? Take us out of the show like a true pro.
What are you thinking?
Freestyle it, brother.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it, folks. There's people who tell you and there's people who show you. This guy over here shows you every time.
Woo! That's it.